Stop talking about it and do something!
Suck my dick, Earth, with that bullshit.
Really?
It's like a gentle hate.
Do we have another benevolent service? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Are you benevolent? Is your friend over?
I am moving on. I think I'm coming out of the fire closet.
This is so fucking depressing. I can't be a flat earth person.
Not have a birthday. Not have a birthday. And things making sense.
Good evening, YouTube, and welcome to another edition of Gem's Flat Earth Sunday Roast. We are back once again with the show they don't want you to see. And in tonight's special show, we bring you the very best full breakdown of the Jeran Versus Witsit debate, including fake fallacies, willful ignorance, and of course, lots and lots of lies. All this and only this in tonight's awesome show. So, please stick around. I am your host, Gem, and as always, joining me with their insightful and humorous commentary are just some of the cool kids from the Debate Flat Earth and More Discord server. Good evening, everyone. The music's going to keep going for a while now because it's a bit of a short intro. But you can speak.
Sure. Everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Looking forward to the show. Okay, now we can really speak.
Right.
Try to
Yes.
set us up there.
It's
Brilliant.
it's a bit of a special show, like I say, because we're just covering the debate, because I thought that would be like kind of a cool thing to do, a breakdown. And I've done the whole thing, but I've broken it up into the usual 10-minute or less chunks. But I think how we'll do it is if anybody wants to start it, if there's a point you want to make at a point during the debate, then I think for tonight only we'll allow that, since we all know what's going on and it's, you know, a long debate and what have you. So if you want to just stop, just yell stop and then make a point. And then if we can limit that to twice per clip, then hopefully it won't be too horrendous. But don't feel you have to do that. The clip will end in the usual way and there'll be plenty of time to make a comment. So did that all make sense?
Complete sense.
Excellent.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Sorry, become a flat
Looking
earther.
forward to it. 10-minute blocks of word salad couldn't be any better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long between pauses are we going to go?
Well, you know, as long as it takes. I'm guessing it's going to be, I'm hoping it's going to be maybe slightly less than normal, because it turned out to be quite a long show. So normally I aim for just over 2 hours of stuff, and we're about 2 hours 20 minutes. So we're probably a little bit longer, but we have got fewer clips than normal, so fewer gaps. So we will see. Anyway, the other thing to tell you is, this took quite a while to put together, as do all my shows, as does running a 24-hour Discord server with a live stream. So if you could see your way clear to bunging us a few quid for my efforts, it really helps and encourages me along my way. There are multiple ways you can do that. You can super chat the show, and I'll read out your comment. If you look in the description of the YouTube video, you'll find my Patreon link and my PayPal link, where I get all of the money straight away. Anyway, if you feel like doing that, you can. I won't keep bugging you for it, but you know, if you fancy it, please do.
Send money, Gem. Money
Yeah.
good.
Now, the other thing, I got a bit lazy, and because it's all one debate, I didn't bother to write an introduction for each clip. So we might end up in a bit of a mess tonight. But anyway, we're going to kick off tonight. I've got one clip, just so you have a little bit of a variety. One clip from the Trump's military parade with a whole load of MAGA people expressing a variety of conspiracy theories. Enjoy.
Do you think JFK Jr. will be here today?
I don't know.
You think there's a possibility? It's a possibility? But he did die in 1999 in the plane crash, right?
That is up for discussion. I personally don't think he did.
Oh, okay. There's been a lot of military parades over the years. You know, Kim Jong-un, North Korea, Vladimir Putin, Adolf H. you think Donald Trump throws the best military parades?
Who knows? I've never been to any of those, and I hadn't seen this one yet. But this one is pivotal. I don't even think it's about, he says it's about celebrating 250 years. We'll see what it's about.
Do you think the military parade is actually about something much bigger?
Yeah, but we'll see. I could be wrong.
Would you like to see Donald Trump enact martial law?
Well, we are under martial law.
Right now?
Yeah.
Since when?
It's been for several years, but the people just don't know it yet. But he's going to make it public in the next few days, I think. That's what I think.
And what does that mean, martial law for everyone right now? That's a huge story that you're saying right now.
Well, the proof is out there if you look for it. I've seen the documents.
Wow. What do you think's really going on right now in the United States of America?
It's we're a Jesus revolution. Yeah,
I think
Jesus is coming back. This is the greatest thing going on that since Jesus walked the earth, and the greatest story ever told. In the end, the greatest story ever told.
Wait, Donald Trump being in office is the greatest thing since Jesus?
Donald Trump's part of the rescue.
What the rescue from what?
The rescue of all the evil going on in our world.
Okay. Who is working with Donald Trump right now behind the scenes?
Mostly God. That's what I think.
Wait.
God and whoever's walking with him.
Donald Trump is like getting orders from God? Like actually talking directly to God?
I think so.
You think Donald Trump is talking to God, and when he enacts something, an executive order or something, it's because God actually told him?
I don't know about that, but I believe he's getting his instructions from God. Yeah, I sure do.
How would you rank it, like as far as like most important things? God number one, and then Trump?
Of course. Of course. He's just he's just a tool like the rest of us. And
I agree with that. Everybody excited for the parade? Tepid response here.
We are here at Donald Trump's military parade, and you are here with a sign that says what?
January 6th was an inside job.
So how did they get Donald Trump on board with the inside job, though, to send people there?
What are you talking? It was people were already there.
No, I'm saying if it was an inside job, how did they get the president? That's as high as it goes.
Because because it's up to Nancy Pelosi to do the security on that.
You're saying Donald Trump absolutely not part of the inside job of January 6th? Then?
Absolutely.
He is not.
He is not.
Was not part of the inside job.
Not.
Okay.
I've been supporting him since 2016. I'm glad he made it in office. I think he was elected in 2020. I don't know what happened there. Bunch of mumbo jumbo with the election, but he's back. He's killing it. I'm here for him.
You think there was a bunch of mumbo jumbo in the election in 2020?
Yeah. I was actually laid up and kind of watching what I could get on the news feeds, and everything was going down. People making announcements, people dropping off ballots, people dumping ballots in mailboxes where they're having the mail-in voting ballots. So I don't think that was right. All that was sketchy, and I'm pretty sure it influenced heavily in the election. So I'm just glad that we kind of straighten it out now. We got 4 years to straighten it up and get it flying right, and I think we're on the right path.
And what did you think about the mumbo jumbo that happened on January 6th at the Capitol?
So on my truck, I had Free the Patriots on my truck when I come out here for the inauguration because I believe that they were wrongfully persecuted.
Were you happy when Donald Trump pardoned all the people who were...
Yes, very.
Even the violent offenders?
Yes.
And even the ones that were beating up cops?
So I didn't see any of that. What I saw was a lot of video footage of the cops instigating stuff. And that might have been
when they were trying to get in the building?
Well, when you see people being invited in and then you prosecute them for that, that's where I think a problem is. And I think it was just a setup, an entire setup.
And why is Donald Trump your favorite president, if he is?
Because he is executing the plan.
Yeah.
The plan that JFK started.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's the plan?
To save the world.
Oh, okay. Literally?
Yeah, literally. Plan to save the world. It's a huge rabbit hole. It's hard to explain.
That sounds very big. What is the plan to save the world?
What do you say?
Gosh, where do you begin with that?
You mentioned Trump is Q+. What does that mean?
Where we go one, we go all. Y'all throughout the world knows what that means. And the message is this. The military is the only way. The military is the only way because as you see a crooked government like John Roberts, he's crooked like Hillary.
Would you like to see Donald Trump use the military against some of his enemies in the country?
Well, sure. I mean, I think he is, don't you?
Well, in
Yeah.
Los Angeles, for sure.
Yeah, and I think he is other places. It's not made public, but it's happening.
Would you like to see Donald Trump use the military against U.S. citizens?
If they've done something wrong and they're trying to hide, yeah.
And what do you think?
If they're treasonous, if they deserve it, yeah.
Do you think some Democrats in the Senate and the House are treasonous?
I think they probably all are. Every last one of them.
All Democrats are treasonous?
Probably. That are in the House and the Senate, yeah.
What, the Democrats have tried to stage over 1,800 riots across the country, coast to coast?
You're talking about the protests?
They're riots. They degenerate into riots every time. Come on.
Every time? Really?
Most of the time. Most of the time.
Most of the time, really?
I was scared.
But really, most of the time? Because there's been a lot of protests.
Okay, Los Angeles is a nightmare, a hellscape right now. Come on.
I think there's like about 5 blocks where things have happened where there's been violence. Yeah, which is unacceptable. I'm sure anyone would agree on that.
The Democrats like to surf this wave about January 6th, which was extraordinary and unusual and quite an anomaly.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of riots credited to progressive liberals. Come on, you never heard of conservative Republicans burning cars or acts of arson or throwing cinder blocks at people. Come on.
Or committing acts of violence.
Yeah. The January 6th was the worst, and there's questions about that.
A Democrat state senator was just killed in Minnesota.
Yeah, I know there's something. I only heard the news.
Yeah.
There's something shocking.
Yeah.
Let's see who's responsible.
What would you like to see Donald Trump do to all these Democrats who are trying to block some of the things he's doing?
You know, I just want them to be obliterated off the face of the earth if they're treasonous, and I want the pedophiles obliterated, and I want peace in our nation and in the world, just like everybody else wants.
And do you think there's going to be a big announcement here today?
I don't know. I'm here to see. Even if it's not a big announcement, the people that know will know underneath it all.
What does that mean? Know what?
The people that know what's really happening, what's really going on.
And what is really happening? What is really going on?
Our nation is about to be liberated.
What is a big news story that most people don't know about?
Well, all of the special ops teams that are taking people down.
Who's been taken down so far?
Lots and lots of international leaders.
Who, like who? Any Americans?
Of course. Yes.
Any big people, former presidents or anything like that?
Yes, there are a lot, and I'm not going to name them because, for one thing, I'm terrible at details.
Sounds like it.
Oh, that was fun, wasn't it? The good liars there, and that was definitely not Gabriella in the red T-shirt.
That was definitely Gabriella.
And the lady in the white T-shirt, the lady in the white shirt was definitely not Franklin.
I never knew the CNDC stood for conspiracy.
It's also questionable.
Definitely not Franklin. You cheeky monkey. I hope he's listening.
This is the biggest thing since Jesus walked the earth.
Yeah, well, that's the sort of thing he says, isn't it?
It is. Isn't it strange they never find professionals in these queues, isn't it? It's all people literally just struggling to work out how to use a parasol and this sort of thing, and just always look like they could have a horrific accident with the domestic appliance at any moment's notice.
It's funny though, isn't it, where you see these people that they just live in this fantasy world. You know, they're voting and making voting decisions based on this whole, fantasy reality that they've got going on, where, there's going to be this savior and they're all going to be liberated, and you know what I mean? It's crazy.
How's he going to save the world? How does that play out in someone's head?
Well, he's
gonna sign up India and Pakistan for trade, and then there'll be world peace.
The battle in the deep underground bases will be won and the children will come out of the holes in the ground and be freed. And
Well, I'll tell you what, I bet those people he interviewed have been absolutely salivating at home the last 24 hours what's been going on.
And 250,000 sealed indictments will be unsealed and everyone will be arrested.
Oh,
and then the rapture, Jev.
Yeah, the arrest thing is a big part of it.
Yeah, blowout box week.
They like the arrests, and they're going to be done by the military, not by police or anything. They really like the military arresting people. And then they're going to have 24-hour live stream
trials.
Yeah, trials and executions from Guantanamo Bay. I mean, I don't know how long it would take to try 250,000 people, but I'm thinking quite a long time. Anyway, I'm rambling, aren't I?
Yes, you're borderline schizophrenic right now, Jim.
Hello to Brandon Cook, who I don't think I've seen for a while. Anyway, let's get on with it, shall we? The great debate, starting with Jeran's opening statement.
Thanks everybody for being here. Obviously, thanks for inviting me, Austin. Thanks for moderating, Sean. I know it was last second. Much appreciated. So, and let me begin by saying hello to the former colleagues, friends I have. I wish it was under better circumstances. Unfortunately, as you know, tonight I'm debating somebody I once stood next to in the Flat Earth community, Austin Witsit. We ran summits, Globebusters. We spoke at conferences. We used a microphone and speaker at Venice Beach. We claimed to seek truth. And the same, I thought, could be said for all of you. Originally, the difference is that I actually meant it. Others did as well. They've escaped the Flat Earth. We weren't here for a social movement. While I might agree with the ideas of that, those can be done in other ways. We were here for truth and a scientific truth. Once that truth is gone, that's it, game over. So I spent a decade researching, presenting, defending the Flat Earth model. Why? Well, because I thought it was true. So sadder still, Austin and I both went on a trip in December to do what we both thought was helping the Flat Earth, and in my mind at least, by showing strong evidence for or against it. When I encountered the real-world observations that Flat Earth can't explain, I didn't ignore it. I tested it. I went down, took action. I went to Antarctica, watched a 24-hour sun with my own eyes, circled for 4 days. It wasn't NASA. It wasn't Dave Weiss's plasma sun that he got from a Microsoft whistleblower. It's not hearsay. It's a real observation, 100% above board, despite what you hear from all the great Flat Earth researchers. And what did I find? I found a model that predicts and explains and matches reality exactly. And it sure as hell isn't the flat model. I thought people would be adults and we would say we were wrong when the evidence was dropped in our lap. And thanks to Robbie, Paul, Patricia, Austin Thompson, Alex Stein, and the others. And there's still some more people who want to remain unnamed, and still others that maybe nobody knows their names. So I'm happy at least that people can admit when they're wrong. But yes, for nearly a decade, I was one of the most vocal proponents of this theory about Flat Earth, and it's sad to be here. I know there's a lot of people that I respect very much who are speaking at this event, who have been friends of mine for a long time, haven't talked to them in 6 months because they abandoned me just like everybody else, because I went down to Antarctica and came back and told you the truth. Can you imagine? You're all truthers, and you turned your back on me for going on a trip and telling you the truth. So what do you think that does to my opinion of the truthers of the Flat Earth? But what separates me from the community is exactly that I will follow the evidence even if it leads me somewhere uncomfortable. I'm not here representing NASA. I'm not here on behalf of any government. I'm just here on my own telling you my observations and what they mean to me. What is this debate not about, I guess, is, let me get to this part. So my opponent, obviously Austin, I think Austin's sharp. I think he's articulate. I think he's smart. I think he's undeniably passionate. I used to admire that passion, and I do, but I think that the passion without precision is just noise. Austin's approach is a philosophical approach, I believe, more than it is scientific. And here's what we can expect Austin to do tonight, at least in my opinion. He's not going to answer my questions because he's going to leave us with no picture of how the world works or how it looks or how it operates. No idea of its layout, no understanding or no clue about how anything works. He won't offer any explanations since Flat Earth doesn't have any. It will instead say the default position is that we live on a flat plane. But throughout history, we've already corrected that error. The globe is a counterintuitive suggestion. I agree with that. However, it is true. So he also won't at any time offer a working map or model. won't provide a model that matches all known observations, won't explain how you can have circumpolar stars in the south, seen from the continents, the 3 continents, explain why the north at 80 degrees are seeing an inverse but identical observation today that we made 6 months ago to the day, predict sunrise and sunset times for every location on Earth with a flat Earth geometry, or tell us how the sun stays visible for 24 hours at a time in Antarctica unless he invokes refraction or reflection. So one of the biggest problems is that I've seen is that the flat Earth has become somewhat of a cult. So why did I leave it? Well, I left it not because I was debunked, not because I lost a debate or because I was paid off or because I was got tired of fighting. I left because I did something that very few in this community are willing to do. That's testing our conception of the Earth. Think of what the flat Earth has brought in 10 years. It's been 10 years. We have brought nothing to the world. We have invented nothing. We have increased the knowledge of nothing. We have just spun our wheels and ran on a hamster wheel and then got off and been like really proud of ourselves. But when you look back, you didn't go anywhere. You didn't do anything. We didn't bring anything to the world. And there's a certain point where you need to say, hey, shouldn't we have something by now? Shouldn't we have something? So I tested my conception of the Earth. I went to Antarctica. I witnessed the 24-hour sun. I saw it with my own eyes. It means that the South is not a lie. We'll get into that. But let's talk about the so-called research that was done around the response to the final experiment. Spoiler alert, there wasn't any. No investigation, no travel, no counter experiments, just knee-jerk denial, memes, name-calling, lazy live streams from basements with the globe in the trash and Dave Weiss's app back on a digital Ouija board. Instead of being met with genuine curiosity, my trip to Antarctica, something this community has claimed that they wanted for years. This was something that people pushed for, wanted, said was impossible. We went and did it, but instead it was treated like betrayal. Why? Because I didn't come back with a blurry GoPro clip of an ice wall. Instead, I came back with something far more dangerous to flat Earth, and that's the truth. I watched the sun circle my head for 4 straight days. I recorded it. We live streamed it. We showed angles, timestamp shadows, sunspots, you name it, all things that wouldn't exist as we saw them on a flat Earth. And so what do I get for that? Shill, actor, Freemason, CGI. The usual default settings of belief systems that can't survive contact with reality. This has opened my eyes to what the truth community really is. If this is the kind of research that they do about the Antarctic trip, then think of all the things that I thought they were researching correctly before. And it becomes a little bit like a cult when you can't question the doctrine, you can't update the model, you can't accept conflicting evidence, and you sure as hell can't leave, if you notice that. It's Scientology with memes, basically. So here's my evidence focus area. Number 1, I want to remind everybody that today's date is 6 months to the day that we filmed the 24-hour sun. Why is that important? Well, because we can actually go watch the time lapse of the sun circling us right to left in the south. If we went today to Google Earth and we went to 80 degrees north, we would see the exact opposite observation in the sky. Everything identical, 35 degrees at its high, 15 degrees at its low, moving left to right this time. So how is it that we have places in the world that are symmetrical and upside down from each other? There's only one shape that could possibly be, and it's not flat. If the Earth is flat, the south has to be a lie, period. There's no getting around that. You can't have an opposite of the north like we're taught, and then say that the Earth is flat, but it still works that way. No, it wouldn't work that way. So if we went down there and we saw that the south was not a lie, then that's pretty good evidence that the Earth is what we were taught. So if you're unaware of it, it's time you figured it out. If the Earth is flat, then the south cannot be what we were taught. Therefore, if it is exactly what we were taught, then guess what the shape of the Earth is? So in December 2024, I knew the following. The south is either a lie or we were wrong. So I decided to take a free trip to check. And throughout this debate, I will be focusing on a few main points. Each of them is a dagger in the heart of the flat Earth model. It's the reason that I switched. It sucks. It's the last thing anybody wants to do. It's the worst thing I've ever had to do. However, I'm a truther. So despite the people yelling and screaming and the people lying about me, so-called truthers, Steve Falconer blocking me, or, you name it, Dave Weiss blocking me, no contact, these people are not truthers. If they were truthers, wouldn't you want to know what Jeran has to say? This guy was a flat earther for 10 years and now he's flipped. Let's listen to him. Nope. Instead, you all blocked me. You all refused to listen because you're in an echo chamber. That's what you've built for yourself. It's the only way flat earth survives is if you sit in that echo chamber and repeat each other and pretend that Steve Falconer's video did anything other than prove the globe. The South Celestial Pole is visible from the South continents. It rotates just like the North Celestial Pole, but clockwise instead. The South Pole itself is a geographic location. It's verified by directional convergence and solar angles. The reverse sun and moon motion, easily explained by simply saying the word sphere. Tropic of Capricorn behavior, curving to the left, not to the right, easily explained by saying the word sphere. southern star trails matching observations that only make sense with a spherical rotating Earth, circumpolar stars in the south that would never work on a flat Earth, impossible, but they work perfectly when you say the word sphere. Sunrise and sunset, left to right, setting and rising, predicted on a globe, unexplainable, and a paradox on flat Earth. The apparent fake second refracted something cop-out sun is basically the only out that the flat Earth has, is to introduce apparent suns, second suns, third suns, reflected suns, even though that's not how the world works. So my final thoughts is, thank you. Austin, I know you too want the truth. So being that we saw the same thing, I think it's time that we figure out how you can see differently than I do now. If the globe accounts for every single observation that we saw on the trip, and the flat Earth didn't account for any, it failed. It was disproven. It was falsified. Then I have to ask you, Austin, why you would remain in the camp that has nothing, and is that still you being a truther? But at the end of the day, I have something that he does not really. It's an explanation that actually works. So to the audience, I'm not asking you to believe me. I just ask you to think, to test, to observe, to not just discount me outright. Listen, learn, and take it in, and then go and do your own observations. I've got evidence tonight that you can do on your own. You don't need NASA, you don't need authority. You can figure out by the end of today what the shape of the Earth is. And we were wrong. It's okay. Guess what? I'm a truth seeker. I told you guys that we were looking for the shape of the Earth. We found it. Let's move on. Let's get over it. Let's get past it. Thank you.
So that was Jeran's opening. What do we all think?
You cannot take him seriously wearing that hat. Why would he wear such a sparkly hat? It makes no sense.
Anybody else? Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting that now he's where he is. He's citing loads of things that do work on the globe and don't work. He's talking about the stars and everything in the south. Well, he never went down there and saw the stars yet. Do you know what I mean? So he's always known that argument, and he's not corroborated the stars, but clearly they now work. So it's one of those things where you think to yourself, well, you know, how dishonest to himself was he being beforehand?
Right, it's so hard, isn't it, when there's so much water under the bridge? This is how I kind of felt about Ranty and his conversion.
Yeah.
You know, he'd said so many, like, you know, out there things in defense of his position. You know,
sure.
You couldn't just forget them all, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, the final experiment notwithstanding, all the stuff about there's the night sky in the south. He obviously has now gone and looked at it all again and thought, yeah, okay, there's a symmetry north and south. Yeah, he could have done that 2-3 years ago.
Right, that's it. I mean, these things that he's talking about are no more or less compelling, really, than a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, are they? But
no.
All it took was some communication with some people in the south on what's going on in the sky there. But of course he did what he's criticising them for as well, which is, oh, you can't tell the shape of the ground by looking in the sky. And he'd just do that, you know?
Yeah.
He was kind of happy with that. And to be fair, most of what Jeran has done has been things like, he's done a lot with NASA, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's done a lot of NASA debunking, and then he's done things like, I don't know, like aeroplane flight times and things like that, you know.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't really dabble with a lot of this sort of physics and that sort of thing. Although, of course, he's done his, you know, he did his experiments. Anyway, I'm rambling again. Right, let's hear what Witsit had to say with his opening statement.
Okay, cool. All right, so yes, Jeran and I are obviously have been friends for quite a while, and it is somewhat poetic that we're doing this at the summits, which we used to run together, and we did indeed go to Antarctica. So I am going to have to it's a debate, you know, and so I'm just going to have to do what we do in debates. So I will lay this out, and I'll save a lot of the stuff I maybe would have said for the rebuttal period. But to lay out kind of the issue with the South Pole claim and what happened in Antarctica, right? It's really simple. It's just an illogical premise, right? Because it affirms the consequent. And in its core, it's an appeal to incredulity. This is why I did not flip to the globe. That is my answer, is that to maintain logical consistency, I could not have flipped on all of the logical foundation, the evidences, the refutations, simply because I, at one point, didn't understand how something worked. If I were to say, oh, well, I can't see how this would work on a flat Earth, therefore it can't be flat, therefore it must be a globe, that's called an appeal to incredulity, meaning I don't understand it, so it can't be true. And this is a very dangerous fallacy, right? This if we applied that standard to everything else in the world, then we would have never made any type of progression. So that's like my core issue with it is the people I have seen flip when I ask them, they're just articulating to me that they don't understand how it could work on a flat Earth. And that kind of leads into the next part, right? Which is that they shift the burden that I would say that the globe holds over to me or a flat earther, right? Shifting the burden of proof, which is the person that challenges or denies your positive assertion, you're asking them to prove that it isn't true. So yes, it is correct. I will say that the flat Earth is the default position because it is. I think Jeran is going to be more honest than most people, right? So when we typically debate this conversation, so I would imagine he would acknowledge that the default position is that the Earth's a stationary plane. He said that we figured it out over time, that we've been able to replace it. Like we can discuss that, right? But the default position is that the Earth is stationary. The default position is that the Earth's a topographical plane. We utilize it as such, like for almost everything that we do. For transportation, for civil engineering, we actually build that way. We fly planes that way. Like we have to utilize it as a plane. We actually measure elevation vertical, perpendicular to a horizontal baseline that is the sea level, the horizontal datum, and it goes on and on. There are many evidences that we live on a plane, but it is the default position. Therefore, just logically speaking, to claim that the antithesis of that is true, right? The opposite of that, it has the burden of proof. I don't really think that Jeran is denying that. I think he's saying that he thinks it's been satisfied. But the only issue is that if you then go to satisfy that burden, it cannot be an articulation of an appeal to incredulity because you don't understand how it can work on a flat Earth. It can't be, well, if I assume that Earth's a globe, this makes perfect sense. It makes more sense to me than whatever I would think of a flat Earth. I had reified a model prior to this, and therefore, since it doesn't work with the reification of my prior model, it can't be flat, it must be globe. These are just fallacious, and this is the very issue that's got us into this free falling through an infinite vacuum infinitely at 66,600 miles per hour nonsense that we currently were told is true. This is the very line of reasoning that got us into the ever-expanding Copernican model that people believe to be true. Now, I don't know Jeran's specific position now. I don't know if he's a geocentrist or not, et cetera, but we're talking specifically more about the shape. Is it a globe is the question. So I'm going to list off some evidences. I just want to make that very clear that, like, on its face, a stationary topographical plane is the default position based on empirical evidence. The antithesis of that would be that it's actually a globe, that it's a sphere, that the Earth is bending convexly at a certain rate, and therefore it has the burden of proof. And if you point to the sky and say, well, if we were on a sphere, when I get over to the other side of it, everything would be upside down. And since this stuff looks upside down, therefore the Earth has to be a sphere because I can't understand how that would work on a flat Earth. That isn't a sufficient argument. That is affirming the consequent, shifting the burden, reifying your model, begging the question, and more importantly, it's just an appeal to incredulity. That's what it is. So that's why I don't resonate with it at all. So I'll list off some of the evidences of how we know that it is flat. It is a default position. Any positive claim requires the burden. And I actually don't resonate with people that just say stuff in the sky doesn't matter and they throw their hands up. And I can understand even Jeran's frustration with that because I don't resonate with that at all. I think that we should always try to understand the way that things work. We should always seek out answers. We shouldn't try to look at this as some type of little gotcha game where we don't have to answer that. Haha. But it is true that just because I observe a celestial phenomena, it doesn't then make all other evidences dissipate. Right. So we look at the preponderance of evidence. We have to stay logically consistent and we have to see what the empirical evidence actually says. And then we go and test it and we see what the answer is. We don't throw out 95% of evidence because there's 1 or 2 or 10 outliers that we don't know how to currently explain. So I would say one of the really strong pieces of evidence that we live on a plane is something that we recently found out, which is if you actually take angle measurements to stars, say from a ground and from the surface of the Earth, you're going to see that the star gets occulted by the mountain. As soon as that moment happens, you can take the time, you can measure that angle, and you can compare it to the angle of, like, say, in Stellarium. At that exact time you took the time measurement, as soon as the star was occulted, you can then go to the mountain, compare that angle, and it is as if it is planar geometry, it matches perfect. The flat Earth prediction to that star matches perfect, whereas the globe, it would be an entirely different position, many degrees different. And the issue is that they would then have to try to claim refraction, but the star has already been occulted prior to the measurement, so refraction can't even be applicable. So the actual occultation of the star in relation to topography, and the guy that initially went and made this measurement was a glober. He went out there and he saw that the prediction is, you can predict it perfectly with flat Earth, doesn't match the globe at all, and refraction didn't work. He ended up leaving the globe. So it's very similar experience to what Jeran experienced, only he went the other way, right? So that just is a piece of evidence, and there is no sufficient rebuttal I've heard for the globe. We can also talk about the linear distribution of the electrical field. We actually have an electrical field on the Earth, and it's a linear distribution, horizontal field lines of the electrical field. This cannot happen. It has to be a radial distribution on a sphere, and it would actually fall off exponentially away from the center, but that's not what we observe. We don't observe that. The linear distribution of the electrical field is a major issue. It's an impossibility on a sphere, right? So what typically happens, I'm guessing that we're getting close to my time, so I got a few more minutes. So what typically happens is it is what we've always experienced, and this is why I will be very blunt. I'm quite perplexed about Jeran's approach. Like, I was there with him. To all the people that are saying that he's faking, he's not. I was there. I am in no way going to attack Jeran's character in terms of if I think that he believes this or if he's being honest. I think that he does believe it. He does feel like he's being honest, and he feels that he's willing to take shots and attacks to do it. So that aside, because that doesn't really matter, take all the personal stuff out of it. We're trying to figure out actually like what the truth is. Yes, I went to the south. We went to what is seemingly Antarctica, a giant sheet of ice south from Punta Arenas. We saw the sun, and it circled around us, and it didn't go down. So then to claim that that proves that it's a globe, I would have to say, if the Earth's a sphere, in the winter, when I go to Antarctica, the sun will be in the sky for 24 hours. Oh, look, sun stays in the sky, does a circle for 24 hours, therefore Earth's a globe. It's a textbook affirming the consequent. Consequent fallacy. I could say Sasquatch delivers me mail every Friday. I could go find out that there's mail in my mailbox on Friday, therefore Sasquatch is real. To apply that type of logic, it is an infinite regression. You would never find truth. So this is the reason why I haven't flipped. It's because of the empirical evidence, and we could list them off, and it's endless, right? Just the base empirical position, the default position based on empirical evidence that the Earth's flat. How are we even actually making accurate elevation angle measurements in the center of a continent if we're using a horizontal datum, a horizontal baseline that starts at the sea that's thousands of miles away? We extend that horizontally to the center of a continent and then measure a vertical distance above that, perpendicular to it. How is it that planar geometry is perfectly predicting and matching the angle to that star once it's occulted by the mountain, and matches the based on the time of the observer standing on the top of the mountain? You can draw a straight line from observer to top of the mountain to star, and it perfectly matches an angle down to a horizontal baseline with planar geometry, where it's significantly different on a globe. But yet the star's not where it's supposed to be, and we can't invoke refraction because it's after the star is occulted.
1 minute.
So I will say, basically, what always happens is people say, well, then how would this work, this work, this work, this work? And if I don't get my answers, then you lose, Earth's a globe, as if we are to grant them the presupposition of a model that they have reified. That is not how it works logically. So yes, in conclusion, the Earth default position is as a stationary topographical plane. The burden of proof is on the other side. It needs to prove it. And when there's direct geometric refutations to that claim, they cannot be hand waved because there's another celestial observation that you think is better explained by that model that was just refuted, right? We can't actually skip over to that part. So that is very simply my position. And I think that it's based on the logical parameters of how we actually examine the discussion in the first place. So.
Right, lots to go up there, I think.
This is just an observation. I can't stand that he can't pronounce the word field. And what was the other one he did at the beginning?
What does he say for field?
Magnetic field donut.
He has some.
Yeah,
he does have some weird ways of pronouncing things, doesn't he?
He was talking about horizontal field lines, wasn't he, for the electrical field of the Earth?
Right.
Yeah, I think he's proving Jeran right so far. Not bringing anything to the table.
Right. I mean, this whole default position thing, it's just bollocks, isn't it? I mean, it's just nonsense. I mean, We don't treat the Earth as if it's flat. We treat the Earth as if it's a globe. You know, everyone considers it to be a globe. The default position is it's a globe. I mean, it's just false to say the default position is it's flat from empirical evidence. And we've got photographs of the Earth as a globe. I mean,
sure. It alludes to the idea that in a uneducated, completely naive, first principled view of, say, for instance, like someone on a desert island, the sea is flat and the sky goes round you. Yeah,
right.
If that's the default position. What's the default position on bacteria, and what fucking uses it to anybody?
Right. It's just.
I mean,
it's not. You know, it's not a genuine, intellectually honest position to hold. It's like if I limit my experience to just what I'm personally experiencing now, then the default position is that the Earth's a globe. But why would one do that? You know,
a couple of things.
I feel like
he said, go on, sorry.
He doesn't want to lose the grift. He doesn't want to lose that audience, because as soon as he admits, like, he loses that community. I feel like.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the other thing is he's only ever able to consider stuff, like all flat earthers, from the point of view of the globe being proven to him. So Antarctica, he does all this crap about the fallacy, whatever. But it's nothing to do with proving the globe. We already knew the Earth was a globe. That observation in Antarctica disproves a flat Earth. It's as simple as that. It makes a flat Earth impossible. You can still disbelieve a globe if you want to afterwards, but you can know for sure that it ain't flat.
Also,
go on, sorry.
He uses affirming the consequence a lot, right? And basically, it's if P, then Q, therefore P. So it's basically when your premise is in your conclusion.
Right.
And it isn't. What Jeran is doing isn't that. He says, look, we observe these things. These things work with a sphere. They don't work with other shapes.
Right. That's it. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah. A couple of things he said there. He says the flat Earth, we utilize it for almost everything we do. Well, that's fair enough. We utilize it for at some resolution and for very, very local things when it does when the curve doesn't matter or doesn't have a significant ramification. But that's almost, in that statement, he's almost saying, well, there are some things where we actually do utilize the globe Earth, and we have to. He's at least got to the point where he didn't say we utilize it in everything we do. He said almost everything.
Right. I mean, when you're making a building, you're not considering the Earth to be flat, treating the Earth as if it's flat. You're not considering the shape of the Earth at all. It's not.
In the same way as when you're icing a cake, you don't give a fuck what shape the table is.
Right.
I mean, there's a few really annoying phrases that you love to put in, Rich, to fire you up. He said the ever-expanding Copernican model. Copernicus didn't have a notion of an expanding universe.
Right, and of course he's got to take it to that straight away, hasn't he? You know what I mean? Try and get it into those sort of areas.
Yeah.
And the other thing he mentioned...
I think...
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, when he says the expanding model, I don't think he means that the universe is expanding. I think that he says the model is growing because we've added on to it since. I could be wrong.
Maybe.
Oh, okay. Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
I should just remind everyone who's maybe joined us recently, the whole show tonight is this Jeran Versus Witsit debate, which we're going through in 10-minute chunks, but also a reminder to people who joined us a little bit later here in the room, if you feel like you want to stop the video at any point, for this week only, we'll do that. So, but we'll limit it to a couple of stops per clip. But, I mean, if you can save it till the end, do so. I mean, none of them are longer than 10 minutes. Some are, I think the shortest is about 7 minutes or something like that. But if you feel the need, just shout stop and I'll stop the video and you can make a point.
Thanks for the reminder. I almost completely forgot because of the week change.
Right, but as I say, the video will come to an end within 10 minutes anyway. I think that's everything I needed to say, isn't it? Oh, yeah, the other thing I was going to say was celestial theodolite. That's going to come up a lot. So if anybody has got a good understanding of that and a debunk of that, all I've heard so far is, oh, well, it uses stellarium and that's for a globe. But if anybody has got an understanding of what's going on there, I'd love to hear it. So please join us. Anyway, let's get back to it. It's rebuttals next, starting with Jeran, I guess.
Okay, so the issue I have there is that the way Austin's describing it, he's saying that if nobody can explain how something works, well, it doesn't mean it's not true. But we would never get to the truth if that were the case. If the case were that anything could be true, even if it doesn't have any explanation, doesn't explain anything, but somebody just says, well, I think it's true, because that's basically what he's saying, is that if we have different ideas on the shape of the Earth, he's saying it doesn't make a difference if one of them makes all the predictions and the other one makes none, because simply because you don't know how it works doesn't mean it's false. Oh, then that would be true for anything. So I think we live on a dog, and then you might say, well, that wouldn't work. How could we live on a dog? And I'd say, well, just because you don't understand how it works doesn't mean it's not true. So, I mean, we could do that forever. We could live on anything then. I mean, you have a group of things that you look at, and then you find out which one better matches the observations. Now, for me, the flat Earth better matches observations when you're talking about the Earth looks flat. It operates and appears flat. And everything we do is with the flat Earth. That's because no matter where you're at, it's flat. So you can treat the Earth completely and totally like it's a flat plane. And that's how you best do it when you're flying a plane, when you're building a bridge, when you're building a canal. If you took the curvature of the Earth into account, it wouldn't make any sense because where we build is level. So we use a spirit level where we're at, and that is a level plane where it is. And yes, down the road that way or that way are not quite still level with where you're at, but that's not needed in any walk of life. We don't ever look down the way and say, oh, how do we line up with that? We just build a canal, we just build a bridge, we just build where we're at, we use a spirit level, and that's how it works on a sphere. You said that, I guess where I was confused, if all observations match predictions, then that's where you live. So I don't know how to better explain this, is that if you're given a map of your apartment complex and you're asking, hey, where's the laundry room? And they say, here's the map. And outside of your door, they show a pool, but there's no pool in front of you. You can then at that point take the map back to the office and say, this map is incorrect because it doesn't match observations. So we have a map like that. It's called the AE map, and it no longer matches the observations. Therefore, you can take it back to the office and say, hey, this map doesn't work anymore. And then you can take the globe and you can say, well, how about this one? And Austin mentioned going down to 80 degrees and seeing Punta Arenas and blah, blah, blah. And then he said, but that doesn't mean that the Earth's a sphere. Well, what it points out is that every single location that you or I have ever been to, and I dare say every single location that anybody watching this debate has been to, matches the observations given to us by mapping the Earth on a sphere. It does not match any flat plane, doesn't match any cylinder or pyramid. It matches a sphere. The Earth is mapped on a sphere. You can call any of your friends, no matter where they live, and ask them, hey, can you go check and see if the sunrise, sunset comport to this model and this prediction? And their answer every single time will be yes. We have Google Earth, which has never been disproven by one person. It doesn't get the angles of the sunrise and sunset wrong. It gets them right, and it's based on a sphere model. You talked about the celestial theodolite, but you need stellarium to even talk about it. So again, now you're using a globe Earth spherical system in order to tell me that the Earth is flat by using the numbers that the sphere system gives you. I'm not even going to go down that road. That seems to be preposterous on its face. Electrical field on the Earth, I don't know what you mean by linear distribution. You mean that it's, I guess I don't know what you mean. It goes up in a linear fashion, I guess is what you mean. So I don't know why that wouldn't work on a sphere. As I said, wherever you're at is level. So therefore, above my head would be a linear progression of electrical field. It doesn't make a difference if the Earth's a sphere because it doesn't matter for where I'm at. You said we went south, we had a giant sheet of ice. Yeah, we did, but you have to remember we saw the sun south of us, and that refutes any flat Earth that's ever existed and will ever exist. That's the thing that people don't realize about this flat Earth. There'll never be another map, not for the rest of your life, not for the rest of your children's lives. There is no other way to map the Earth on a flat plane other than the AE map. That's it. And once the AE map has been falsified, we're done. It's time to get out. You can go back to the drawing board if you want and play around. I did that for 6 months and realized that's it. There's no more. If the sun circles in Antarctica, then it matches all observations of the sphere, and that's what it did. And the you said about the firming the consequent, where I'm confused on that is, haven't you said before, Nathan Oakley and many people, they all say that the R value has been falsified, that the globe has been falsified. When you ask them why, they say, if the Earth is a sphere of blankety blankety blank, and right? And then it's distance to the horizon is 1.22 times the square root of, right? Then the Earth's, so then they're doing the same thing. So now the number one evidence of the flat Earth that you guys use, the black swan, is an affirming the consequent. You just said that. If it's not, then why can't somebody say, if the Earth is a sphere and the sun does this, then we would see this in the south and we see that, therefore the Earth's a sphere. If that's not allowed, then neither is saying that the horizon is a little bit higher than it should be on that black swan. Which, by the way, I believe that guy Bo, who did that observation, says that he went out there every day for 6 months and then he saw that observation. So now the flat Earth is using a 1 day out of 6 month observation and going around telling people that that's proof that the Earth has been falsified. That's a joke. It's a literal joke that we would ever think an anomaly, meaning that 1 day out of, what would that be, 180, has an observation that makes the Earth flat, and so we're going to go around telling people that the globe Earth has been falsified because of an anomaly. That's crazy. So I think if you have different ideas about the shape of the Earth, which we did, again, I thought that the South was a lie. I thought that they were lying about the southern 24-hour sun. I thought they were lying about what happens south of the 60. That's why I thought they had the Antarctic Treaty. And guess what? I was wrong. When we go down there, we saw that the angles match perfectly in Punta Arenas. They had the sun going right to left. Again, people need to consider this. If you're on a flat Earth and you're at the south of South America, how is the sun going left? How is the sun going to the south? Guess what? There's a model that says the sun will go left, the sun goes south, it goes around the bottom of the Earth, comes back south of east. And that's exactly what we saw. So the globe Earth provides a, and again, I'll fully admit 100%, the globe is counterintuitive, but so is bugs in your tummy. So are a lot of things that we realize now are true. Go take a microscope and pull some bile out of your stomach and you're going to see little swimming creatures. Now, you don't feel like they're in there, but they are. So the globe Earth is the same. You may feel like the Earth's flat. We may feel like there is no curvature. However, we just don't understand large spheres. A sphere can be so big, 24,901 miles in circumference, that you can't tell that it's curved because we're too small. That's how the Earth is a sphere and how it is kind of beautifully created, because you don't have to treat it like it's a sphere. It actually doesn't matter to your life. If you want to be a flat earther, that's fine, but get out of scientific studies, get out of scientific debates, because you don't have the kind of evidence to go up against a globe. You have to better present the world than the globe does. And the flat earth can't explain anything. So that's basically it. Get my time?
Yeah. What do we think?
They don't have anything, Jim.
Sorry?
They don't have anything on the flat earth.
No. No. I thought that was a pretty good rebuttal.
Yeah.
Anyone else got anything to say?
I kind of wanted to stop when he was going through his tirade of all those multiple ways how they had been dishonest.
Right.
But he got through them all, shotgun style, which is a flat earth tactic.
Has it been brought up that I liked his bugs in the tummy? That was good.
Yeah, well, I usually say spleen. So you haven't got any experience of having a spleen, have you? But doesn't mean you don't have one. You know, when they're making these arguments about only accepting personal experience.
Or how you can't feel movement.
Right, exactly.
It's like OnlyFans, but only experience.
All right, let's get on with it. Is Witsit now?
All right, so to rebut your opener and kind of some of the stuff you said right there, I'm just going to list off kind of what's wrong with these arguments. Okay, so we have, again, like I described actually earlier, we have shifting the burden of proof. That's when you make a positive claim. If someone challenges or denies your positive claim, you then tell them they have to prove it. Meaning, if we challenge or deny your claim that the reason that we see that the sun's up in the sky doing a circle for 24 hours is actually because we're tilted antipodal to someone on the other side of this presupposed globe. That actually the sun is 93 million miles away and there's an empty vacuum between us. And therefore, because all of the stars are at such immense distances that we don't ever see them, and that perspective doesn't actually affect where we see them, even though it moves just as if it would be because of perspective like everywhere else. And then about 5 more presuppositions. And you actually require these presuppositions to claim that geometric position of you on the globe is why you see the sun do that. So you list all of those off and then say, if that's not the case, which most of the people defending the globe, they just expect this to be granted. They very conveniently omit that it requires that many presuppositions to even then affirm the consequent that viewing the sun is that way. Right?
Did someone say stop?
Yeah, I tried 2 times.
Oh,
I don't know how loud I should say.
Sorry, you got to be loud and proud. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So he said, shifting the burden of proof, right? And said, oh, but you make these and these claims and you make these and these presumptions, right? And you need to prove them first. So he makes a claim that there are presumptions. Maybe he should have evidence of that claim. Maybe he shifts the burden there. I don't know.
I think so, yeah, because he calls it a presupposed globe a lot of the time, and that's not true. It's not presupposed.
It's a conclusion based on evidence, and for some reason he just assumes that those other evidence that led to those particular positions don't exist and are just assumptions. It's dirty tactics. It's not even dirty tactics. It's just flat out dishonesty.
All right, let's
You have to do all of those. You have to claim all of those presuppositions and reify them, presuppose them, and then affirm the consequent. To address the idea that we're doing the same thing, we are not, right? Like the black swan argument, for example, was if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3,959 miles, then the geometric physical horizon is at 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. It is not. So therefore, the Earth is not a sphere. That is a falsification of a positive claim, as opposed to affirming the consequent, which is if the Earth is a sphere, we'll see the sun be in the sky for 24 hours. We see the sun in the sky for 24 hours. Therefore, Earth is a sphere. That's affirming the consequent, making a positive claim, presupposing the actual thing in question, and then just affirm it because of the outcome, like the actual observation itself. Right. So as if to exclude any alternative possibility. This is why it's logically fallacious. Right. And then, of course, like the straw man of like, it could be a dog. No, the position specifically is that we physically, empirically measure the surface. We utilize the surface to actually be a topographical plane. And then I listed off specific reasons why we have to utilize it to be a plane in the first place. And we can talk more about the positive evidence. I want to just specifically rebut these things. So we have shifting the burden of proof, affirming the consequent. Your whole opening really was like poisoning the well as well, right? Kind of like a hasty generalization, because there certainly are some people that act that way within the idea of flat Earth, hasty generalization fallacy to put them all together, then kind of a stereotype fallacy, right, to describe what we all are, right, and then a genetic fallacy because those people are like that, anything coming from them must not be true, and then and these fallacies are packed into one, and then you use that to poison the well the entire time, right, which is
to point out that all 3 of the fallacies he just named do not exist. He just made those up.
Well, poisoning the well.
Those are fallacies.
Poisoning the well, I guess, is. But I don't think Jeran really did that. I mean, I think he had things to say in his opening that were, as Witsit would put it, netter. And then he had things to say which were to do with the, what they saw in Antarctica. But I don't think he was saying, you should believe me because people were horrible to me.
Right.
Well, his idea of poisoning the well is
if you predict what I'm going to say and the method I'm going to use, that's poisoning the well in Witsit's
right. I think
I think that Dr. Peck, that was a hasty generalization fallacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't need to have fallacy Tourette's like fucking Witsit over there.
All right, let's push on.
Incredibly fallacious, and there were lots of ad homs in there, and then a lot of people that are not here, and I'm not going to answer for what they did or didn't say. I do also know, like in good faith, I'll acknowledge that there's obviously a lot of context and history kind of leading up to this debate and what a sad one, Jeran. You did say that you tested it and tried to explain it for 6 months, and then you decided, well, really right when we got back, you started saying that the Earth was a globe. It wasn't that you tested it and looked for alternative explanations. Okay. There you go. 6 months before. So. Okay, and then begging the question, it's kind of the same thing as affirming the consequence, just an informal, right? And then it was a lot of kind of an appeal to an emotion, right? It's really kind of irrelevant how these people acted. They all turned on me as well, arguably more. And this is a big one. It's a false dilemma. It's a false dichotomy, which is either it's that AE map or it's my presupposed globe and there's no other alternatives. And so since I don't think that this observation works on the AE map, therefore it must be a globe. It's a false dichotomy fallacy. And there were many straw mans, as I've never even claimed that. Model to be true. I've actually said the opposite for a very long time. So, and again, the big one being the argument from incredulity. So I will say, all of these claimed evidences, they require, I wish I knew the time. All these claimed evidences, time? Can
You have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. All these claimed evidences are presupposing so many things, bro. And that's the part that I'm very perplexed about, because we have all sat here and we've realized that we need to suspend belief. Not believing in the globe is a suspension of belief. And you're approaching this as if, no, it's actually us coming in and we have a super staunch positive belief. That is not my position at all. I am suspending belief, wiping the board clean, and be like, okay, what can be empirically validated? I'm not going to presuppose things. Again, let's just stick with the 24-hour sun. To say that the 24-hour sun, because you just defended it, you just stated the conclusion in your opener. You stated the conclusion as a fact, right? So you're just saying that we saw it, therefore we proved it. You just told us about how it was definitively proof, not really how it wasn't, or how it was proof. And then when you kind of even went in that direction, it was because I don't understand the alternative. I don't see how that could possibly work on the alternative. It matches the globe perfectly, which again affirms the consequent. So I want everyone to just think about this. So to claim that the reason we saw what we saw in Antarctica is because we're on a sphere, we're going to claim that all the stars in the sky are infinite distances away, so far away that when we move across the surface of the Earth and it looks like they drop down when we move further away from them, it isn't because of perspective. How perspective changes everything else in the world. And when we see a plane fly away from us and it goes down, right, and it comes close to us and it goes up, perspective affects everything in the world. We use special pleading, which is claiming the exclusion to a universal principle, the exception to a universal principle, which is no, actually the sky is the one exception, the stars is the one exception. Perspective doesn't change it. It does exactly what perspective would do to change the position, but it isn't because of perspective. And then to make that, so we have to presuppose that to even claim the globe is possible. This is why they've changed the distance so many times and kept pushing it back. Then to claim that those stars are that far away, you then have to answer the question of how would you be able to see it from that far away? So now you have to assume that there is a vacuum, that there's nothing between us, a near perfect vacuum, so you could even see
1
them.
minute.
And then you stack those on top of each other to come over and say, therefore, we're physically changing direction. It makes the perspective look as if it would if we were on a horizontal plane, but it's not perspective, and therefore we see the sun where it is. And you have to assume the distance, pretty much assume the 93 million miles as well. So that's my main issue with this, is that before we even get to affirming the consequent, we have to, presuppose like 7 or 8 things. And that's kind of my rebuttal. I listed off all the fallacies. I won't list them back. I don't think I have a full enough time, but the big ones are argument from incredulity, an appeal to ignorance. You have shifting the burden of proof. You have begging the question, appeal to pity or emotion, false dilemma, slippery slope, strawman fallacy, affirming the consequent, ad homs, hasty generalizations, reification fallacies. And that's the issue, is that every single one of the arguments I've heard so far have literally been a textbook fallacy. So we can get into specifics going forward.
I think it'd be good.
And time. All right, thank you.
He's just ridiculous, isn't he? With his list of fallacies. He's just...
He's committing the all-list fallacy and the hairy-faced fallacy.
Right.
It's ridiculous. All the fallacies.
The appeal to the wah and the begging to the doodah and the dum-de-doodah day.
It just sounds absurd, though, doesn't it? Because, if someone had made a fallacious argument... Jeran didn't make enough points for all of those fallacies.
No, right.
Right.
I mean, and he is now saying, well, just, he's still sticking to this thing where he thinks that the stars can be explained with just straightforward, everyday perspective. I do hope he makes a statement to that assertion in his upcoming book, because it's all over.
Yeah,
because that can't be true.
Right,
that isn't true.
Because he said the stars do exactly what perspective would do, is what he said.
Exactly,
which is a direct lie.
Yeah, just not true at all.
He can't mathematically or graphically demonstrate that. Never has been able to. Even when asked to, he says, "Well, I don't know. We don't know what the sun and moon is. We're doing in this sort of thing."
Right.
But when he's not saying what you're appealing to, or what your fallacy is, or what your presupposition is, what's he got left?
Right. Nothing. Just nothing, has he? And he claimed that he's suspending belief. So believing that there's a big lie going on that's been perpetrated for hundreds of years at least, and that everything that NASA do is fake, and all of that, that's suspending belief. believing in all of those things.
It's like believing in the big lie of 2020, Jam.
Yeah, I mean, they're not, you know, he talks all this stuff about fallacies, but he isn't even capable of seeing even the most obvious flaws in his own reasoning. It's quite astounding, really.
Yeah,
And
but
one
I
thing
am
is
really hoping that he tries to demonstrate very near things and perspective, making them move around as you move on the
Right.
surface. I'm really hoping that comes
They
out.
do get into it in a little bit. And the other thing he said it's a false dichotomy, and it's not. It's true dichotomy. They said that that the sun would set, and we said the sun wouldn't set. I mean, where's the false dichotomy? I just don't think there is one. Anyway, let's have a bit more. I don't know what.
I wanted to add something.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, he literally oftentimes claims he has falsified the globe, meaning he makes the positive claim of the globe being wrong. Like he says the globe doesn't exist, right? So he does the argument from fallacy, basically fallacy, meaning if your opponent has actually a fallacy, you can conclude from the fallacy itself that the conclusion your opponent makes is wrong.
Right.
You can only conclude that his argument is wrong.
Right. Right, fair enough. Let's hear a bit. I think we get into a bit of a to and fro now, so let's have a listen.
That the stars do not act as perspective acts. Perspective does not adjust equally, meaning that if I move a certain distance, it lowers a certain distance, and if I move a certain more distance, it lowers the exact same distance. If anybody wants to go outside tonight, find a north-bound longitude line and measure wherever 69 miles from you will be. When you get there, the North Star will change its position by 1 degree. Well, guess what 360 times 69 miles is? 24,901. Why is that? Because that's the shape of the Earth. That's the circumference of the Earth. You can go prove it tonight yourself. You don't need anybody. But flat earthers aren't going to tell you that. They're going to tell you, oh, it's perspective, and that's how perspective works. It's not how perspective works. Go measure the height of a telephone pole, walk halfway to it, measure it again, walk another same amount of distance, and you'll notice that it changes. If you're walking towards a building, it gets bigger, faster as you get closer to the building than it does when you're far away. This is not how the stars work. So the stars, he was false in that. He said that the stars operate as perspective would. That's not true. They don't. What's your, I guess you're...
Let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. Yeah. So you agree, like if a plane flies over your head and goes away, it looks like it's going down. As it flies close, it goes, okay, so perspective does in fact cause things in the distance to appear to go down towards the horizon and converge into that place.
Agree.
And okay, so that's what I'm not talking about the exact ratio. The sky is for sure a very interesting phenomena, right? I mean, indisputably, in the paradigm of the globe, it's like wildly crazy phenomenon.
Are wild. Yeah, the things are pretty crazy. But I think that the flat Earth model that calls for stars circling your head would have parallax issues. They would have all kinds of stuff that we don't see anything of, right? We don't see the constellations change their orientation. So it does do exactly what the sphere calls for with these stars at a very, very far distance.
Well, let's just talk about it. So like, okay, so perspective does cause things to look like it goes down when it goes away from you, and the stars do that. So, like I said,
but at a predictable exact rate. So, like if you did that with perspective, you wouldn't get the same. We move 69 miles north, the star drops 1 degree. 69 more miles, 1 degree. 69. That's not how anything perspective works. If you did that,
that actually isn't even entirely true, right? So there is, So it's claimed to have like a linear 1-to-1 ratio. This actually isn't true though. Like if you actually look at like the celestial navigation, like the manuals, right? You cannot take any of the angles like all the way up to something like 15 degrees and then a few degrees away from 90. You can't even take them. And so actually it's like logarithmic. It actually starts to compress almost like a hyperbolic, like a geometry. But everyone just says it's 69 miles, oh, it just works, and everyone acts like it works. It doesn't. It like factually doesn't. You can't actually use the angles to the stars lower down. Meaning as things get closer and closer to the horizon, right, that claimed linear ratio doesn't happen at all. And just to make the bigger claim though, because I don't want to get lost, what I'm saying is it is special pleading in that we're claiming the exception to a universal principle, which is everywhere else, when we look, we know that because of perspective, that things get further away, they appear to go down, right? And we see the sky appear to go down, but the globe is claiming, so yeah, it has the same effect as perspective, but it isn't because of perspective. It's because we're physically changing our orientation, right? We agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just want to know if you're talking about if perspective is a mathematical equation, is there a formula for perspective?
Well, that's a good question, right? People do use a formula for perspective, but I don't agree with it. And so,
Okay,
if you actually look into it, it's well known that like visual space is much more complex than this really rudimentary trigonometry that people try to use, assuming that there's linear visual space. And this has been tested and written about at some of the highest levels all the time.
So you're saying that do you think if we went to 25 degrees north and then we kept going 1 degree or north each time, so we get up to 45 degrees, are you saying that the star wouldn't adjust by exactly that amount of degrees based on if we go 69 miles north, 69 again, say we do it 10 times, it's 690 degrees, 10 steps so that way, so the North Star will be 10 degrees different. You agree with that?
It will be, it'll be very close. It will not be exact. And
if you're at 25 and 45 degrees, it should be close, right? Because you're not in the refraction zones.
Okay, so that's what you're saying. You're calling this is what. Let's make sure everyone understands this. Conveniently, we call the refraction zones all the way up to like 15 degrees or more above the horizon, because what actually happens is the stars start to act way different, right? I mean, that's 15 degrees is super high above the horizon, right?
I agree.
No, but the stars start acting different. Well, this is what like hyperbolic visual space would predict. It would be a logarithmic relationship. So like on the globe, it's very simple. We're standing on a globe. There's basically nothing between us and the stars. They're super far away. So the only reason the stars look like they change positions is because we're tipping over. But that's actually not what we observe in reality. All the way 15 degrees or more, we start to see them start to compress and get logarithmic, meaning that the way that they change is exponentially different. And even all the way up towards 90. So you're told specifically not to utilize those. So we can say it's refraction. That's not even like a realistic or viable explanation, like 15 degrees. So conveniently, the difference in the linear perspective and a hyperbolic perspective, it's a wash, right? According to the globe, it just conveniently, we're going to change that range and not use it. We're not going to use the range that would be different between a linear and a hyperbolic visual space.
But is that also the place where refraction would cause issues with the observations of stars?
15 degrees above the horizon?
Sure. I mean, if you're looking out in the direction, that's not very high, and that's where all the atmosphere is, right? So you're going to be looking through the most amount of atmosphere at about 10 to 15 degrees from the ground. That's where you're going to have, again, I'm saying if refraction is true, which I believe that it is, and then you just have to say, well, that's what the globe is saying, is that the reason that the stars get mushed together is because they are being refracted, or they kind of disappear, they kind of get faded in that area. So again, I don't know if that's really, because I'm saying we could still take the distance away from 15 and away from 90, and then we could, if that's working perfectly as a sphere, that'd be really weird that works as a sphere, but not the 15 degrees that we have left to go. So, I mean, you could just keep doing that one section that you have, and you would be able to figure out that the Earth is 24,901 miles around, simply because you can keep going north, and you would always get 1 degree every 69 miles. So I see what you're saying. I mean, again, you're just going to claim that that's... I'll have to look into what exactly the formula is, because I do know that refraction does break down as well. Not refraction, sorry. The perspective breaks down close to you and far away from you.
It does because of the way that everyone tries to use like linear geometry for perspective. So right. Like, and this is just an assumption, but this has actually been written about for decades, and it's just people don't even want to go touch it. And like, I've done a stream on this, right? It's a very basic way to disprove this idea, because when we look at railroads, we know that they're physically parallel in reality, but they look like they converge. Okay, but according to planar geometry, they don't ever converge. They're just parallel. So if we were seeing in planar geometry, we would see them just remain parallel. So obviously there's a difference between how we see in actual plane geometry, right? Because it's converging. They appear to converge. And what they end up saying is, oh, well, we have a formula for that. Yeah, you made a corrective adjustment to the trigonometry because planar geometry doesn't work. And this has been like a well-known problem. It's just like the elephant in the room in any discussion about visual space. And I will say they actually recently had to address it because they were utilizing planar geometry for perspective with robotics, which required extreme precision, and the robots were off. They couldn't accurately position things even in small rooms because it was such such a precise need of visual alignment. So they actually had to start to integrate like hyperbolic visual space. So now we have a huge situation where we're assuming that we see in straight lines on a globe and we map the whole globe out that way. And if we actually see with curved visual space, right there, if perspective is not perfectly linear, the globe can't be true. Like on its face, because that's like every angle measurement, the way the entire globe model is set up, it's based on assumed straight lines that we see in. So we actually don't even see that way. And
so you're saying that we see curved lines to the stars?
I'm saying that like the collective visual space itself, yes, like towards the bottom, what happens is the extremities. So like towards as far as you can see, when you get closer and closer to the limit of how far you can see, you start to have like an actual curved convergence.
But we don't see that with the stars, right?
We do see that with the stars, and that's why even in the manuals they say don't even take the measurements like up to 15 degrees.
Sorry, I meant do we see? You were talking about like railroad tracks converging in the distance, so things as they go away from us converge, but stars don't do that. Is what I'm saying. The stars.
Oh no, yeah, they definitely don't do it like the rate. If they do, it's like hard to even notice at all for sure. Right. But that's why I did immediately concede that yes, the sky isn't just like very basic, but they're in like a different realm almost, right? We don't, regardless of what you think about the Earth, it's well known that what happens in the sky is like something totally different, right? Like we don't know. Like according to the globe, it's pretty crazy as well. It's actually, I would say, much crazier. I'm not claiming to know exactly how the sky works, and I'm also acknowledging that perspective is not exactly like this 1-to-1. I don't even believe that it is linear. The evidence shows on the Earth that perspective is not that way. So now if we're going to add way more distances to the stars, right, we have to account for curved visual space.
Oh dear. What do we think to that?
Well, he demonstrates he hasn't got a math education, that's for certain. He's the mishmash. I mean, he talked about these. It's not this 69. This 1 degree drop or elevation rise. From 69. This is entirely accurate. I mean, in the 15 degrees near the equator, he said it's logarithmic, and it's exponentially different. Now, that's fucking horseshit. If it's exponentially different, that means they'd be asymptotic, and that means the star wouldn't set.
Right. It just...
he's just reading all the wrong... He could say the rate of change is, changes, but you can't say it's logarithmic on the basis of that.
Right. He also said, he said in the prior clip, he said the stars do exactly what perspective would do. And now, in this clip, he's saying, oh, well, not that perspective. I've got some other perspective that I've dreamed up. Some other version of curved linear space or whatever. And, a whole other version of perspective. So when he said, exactly what perspective would do, he meant, he didn't mean that, did he?
No, and I don't know all this bollocks about robots not being able to see unless they see in a hyperbolic perspective. I mean, I've seen articles about cameras with a CCD having effectively projecting onto a linear surface, so there is a hyperbolic distortion. But for robots working through an AI, you could train it with a lens in front of it that a mirror effect would distort it. It would simply learn around the distortion like any other system would.
Right. Another thing he said it was special pleading because the stars weren't affected by perspective. But that's only special pleading if you believe that the stars are very close.
Sure.
Right.
Well, they
then
are.
It would be special pleading, but Jeran doesn't believe the stars are very close, so...
I mean, in the strictest terms, they are behaving exactly as perspective tells us, if they're a fucking long way away.
Right, exactly. All right, let's have a bit more. We can't drone on too long. We're on clip number 6 of 15. So we're over a third of the way through it. Let's have some more.
Let me just say so you understand my position too, is I'm not buying into any of the other stuff yet. That all takes being convinced like I was of the sphere. So everything else is on the table, but the sphere is not something at this point that I think can be changed. Nothing's going to come out that now the sphere doesn't work anymore. It's the Earth is mapped as a sphere. It operates as a sphere. Again, yeah, is it flat locally? Yes. So do we treat the Earth like it's flat? So it doesn't surprise me anymore that we have manuals saying treat the Earth as a flat, motionless plane, because that's what you do. If you did it anything else, you would crash, because you don't need to do that. The Earth is so big, we just don't have any understanding of spheres that are large enough that are in the entire world. I want to show this real quick, just so I'll get your answer on this one, Austin. So this is you can see my screen now that I'm sharing these little things here.
Yeah, actually, I did find out that I can help you share your screen if you want.
Okay, well, I'm all right. I think as long as people can see that. So this was on Twitter.
Well, let me make you bigger then. It's like super small, right? So.
But it is kind of serendipitous, or whatever you want to call it, that this is the 6 month to the day anniversary of this particular observation. So this is the 24-hour sun on December 14th in Union Glacier. So this is what Austin and I both saw. We both know that we were both there. We both know there was no trickery. There was no funny business. That's the freaking sun. And it does circle your head in Antarctica. So once we see that, something interesting is if we go now to the Google Earth here, you can see that, yeah. So I've got Google Earth pulled up, and you'll see up here that I've got the date as 6/14. You can't see that high? Oh, it's a little about. Let's see if we can get this. You can see it. Shoot, hold on. I don't want you to see. Sorry. Stop. Okay, let's go with this one instead. That's better. All right, now you can see it up there. Right. So you see at the top here it says 6/16. I went back 2 days, but you'll notice that this is at the north, at 80 degrees north. So the complete opposite of where we were 6 months ago. And if we play the time lapse, you'll notice that the sun does the exact same thing that we saw it do, only the opposite. It's the opposite direction. And there'll never be a flat model ever in your life or your children's lives that will ever explain this. And it doesn't matter if you say it's personal incredulity, that I don't know how something works. So no, because there's been flat earthers forever, and they've never, not one person, not one entity, not one Daniel Shenton, not one Lady Blount, not one St. Pierre, not one Allen, not one Witsit has ever been able to explain it. So if your level of acceptance of something is you're not allowed to say that it doesn't, just because I don't know how it works. Well, how many people need to say that something doesn't work until we know it doesn't work? Eventually, we have to get to the conclusion that something will never work, and we move on from there, and we just leave it. We don't stay on something and say, well, we still think the Earth's flat no matter what, even if it doesn't work. There is a model that very simply says, of course, you would see 80 degrees north, the opposite of what you would see 80 degrees south 6 months later, because that's how the globe works. It's what it predicts. It's what it calls for. So, and again, it's the exact same, meaning that if you were to measure the lowest, which looks about right there, the lowest spot in the sky, if you measured that, it'd be 15 degrees. If you notice, it's exactly north. Okay, what I figured out in the south, whoops, didn't mean to move up. What I figured out in the south was by watching the sun, I said, man, every time the sun gets to its lowest position, if I walk towards it, it will adjust up by 1 degree every 69 miles. And we were, remember, it was like 15 miles or 10 degrees low or 15 degrees, wherever it was in the south. And I realized, oh, I bet you we're 790 miles from the pole, because you could just figure that out by how many times do I need to go towards the sun till it was at 15 degrees, but by going towards it, it's going to lift. And every time it lifts 69 miles, you would do it 10 times. It would lift 690 times. There's 690 miles you'd travel, and that's where the South Pole is. Because what that would do is raise that sun to 25 degrees, and then what would that move the 35 degrees behind me to? 25 degrees. There's only one place on the Earth that would allow the sun to go around you and stay at the same height the whole time. That is the North and South Pole. And that is what we saw, 15 degrees and 35, but now I can infer from that there's a South Pole. We know the South Pole's there. Flat Earth wants to keep pretending that it might not be, which is them creating a paradoxical world where we have a North Pole, and underneath it, we have a North Celestial Pole. Underneath it, we have a North Pole. We have a South Celestial Pole, which is exactly 180 degrees from the North Celestial Pole. What's below it? Flat Earthers will never answer that, because it completely destroys the model. You can't say there's a South Pole, because on a flat map, everywhere is the South Pole. South Pole is in all directions and everywhere. So my question to you, Austin, is with this, I get what you're saying, where you're saying, well, no, you're just claiming that you don't know how a flat model works. So at what point do we throw the flat model away if we've now falsified it, technically, in the way that at least the map that you don't ascribe to? But do you understand that there's no other map ever coming, that there's no other, the AE map is the continents laid out correctly, with the tropics laid out correctly, with the equator laid out correctly. Those are not movable because they're not man-made. They are features of the place that we live. The sun furthest south, Tropic of Capricorn, furthest north, Cancer, and the equator is where it's above on the equinox. So my question is, if there's never going to be another map, and the flat Earth map has been falsified, then what is your hope by staying a flat earther? Where do you think what's going to happen? How could that ever be answered? It would have to be, number one, we create a new map, which is impossible because the continents are laid out correctly. That's the AE map. Or we figure out there's a magic formula of repeating suns and duplicating suns. So is that really what you're hoping for, is some sort of miracle? Or do you understand that you'll never explain it? Because it hasn't been explained in hundreds of years, if not thousands.
Okay. You said a lot, right? So
sorry, but we can take it slow. I just want to know, what is your, do you acknowledge that in the north right now, today at 80 degrees north, they would be seeing the inverse and complete opposite of what we saw?
Yes, it certainly seems that way. Now, I mean, we did one trip and we saw one location, but it was pretty close to matching. Like, I don't even think it actually matched perfectly some of the elevation angles, but pretty close. Sure. But here's the thing, right? For one, it's like, how are we even determining what is the opposite? What are we talking about right now, right? We're talking about a model. And so you're bringing up the AE map. The AE map uses the same fictitious observer in the center that the globe does. You actually have to just assume the center of a globe, use a fictitious observer, and then look at the sky, and you're actually going to map out this projection. You're talking about the South Pole. If I were to take the center point and move it over 5 or 10 degrees, now everything changes drastically, right? We don't even have the same positioning to observe the sun at all as the AE map, because it's just a projection. They both have fictitious observers. And this isn't just some way to get out of it. It's very important. It's very important to understand that these are just maps and projections and models that use fictitious observers and assumptions for convenience sake. We then did this over the course of time, and now we have generally what we observe matches our map or our model. And you keep saying, you keep bringing up the AE map as if I'm supposed to answer for that. And then you say, well, what are you expecting to have some other, for one, if you wanted to play the projection game, you can move stuff around and get a bipolar. If you take that away from the south and move it in, you get a bipolar projection. And you would say, well, then how would this work on the bipolar? And you're going to try to critique it. Well, they're all just projections. I don't reify and treat any of those as if they're real. I know that they're not. They're just projections, and they all have issues, and you make consistent refractive corrections. And this is very important because this kind of got lost with the first one. We're talking about the refractive conditions required for, let's say, celestial navigation, for CELNAV. You have to use planar corrections, actual empirical measurements, then correct to even try to get the refraction. And you don't just use Snell's law. We use planar measurements to then correct, and we can't even actually use this 1 degree per 69 miles, which is such a slam dunk for the globe. It's the complete opposite. That doesn't actually happen in reality. And then to try to make the corrections for refraction, we don't use typical refraction. We then actually have to account for planar geometry to even do it. Right? So, and then that kind of spills right over to, well, then we definitely can't have a situation where when we look at the star and we see the position of it in relation to a mountaintop, if we take a planar geometry measurement to that, as soon as the star is occulted by the mountain, we're like, okay, because this is what this is all about. You're talking about, this proves the Earth's a globe because the sun's right here, right? And it's based on the position on the globe. It's the same thing, celestial observation. I see the star go behind the mountain. It gets occulted. I immediately take the time, right? And then if I go into Solarium, you brought that up. Well, that's just a globe. Why are you using that? That's the whole point. We're using the globe to see what the actual prediction should be, right? To falsify it. And it uses the same fictitious central observer again. But when we're on top of that mountaintop, we look at the time, it matches the perfect planar geometry measurement. Meaning if I'm on a flat Earth and I stand right here, I look at a mountain, the star gets occulted by the mountain, and I take an angle to the top of that mountain, if I go stay on top of that mountain and take another measurement to that star, it'll actually make a straight line all the way down from star to mountain to observer, right? It'll come down and basically complete part of a triangle. And there's a specific angle that the flat Earth would predict. The globe Earth predicts something completely different. It would be much lower. It's on a globe. And it matches the flat Earth prediction every time consistently. Right?
Oh, caught me unawares. So, what do we reckon? I mean, one thing I noticed was, he right at the start there, he said, he talked about the observation, and he said, I don't think it matched perfectly some of the elevation angles. And he does this a lot. He'll just throw in this little casual doubt about something, you know, to just sort of, or casual statement to cast doubt on something, you know.
He wants a 5 significant figure precision on something that he has nothing for at all.
Right. He didn't make these measurements. He doesn't know if that's true. It's just. I think some flat earther probably said it somewhere once, and you know they were just guessing. So
the only solar filter he took down there was his SPF 30 for his nose.
Right. And what's this fictitious observer thing? Does anybody know anything about that?
That was absolute fucking word salad. If that's how he wants to dismantle the problem with the AE map and the maps and all the projections are anomalous in some way by saying, oh, it's just a load of, virtual observers and virtual positions. We smush it together just to reify the doodah again. He's just crap. Just flannel.
I think I can explain what he means. He means when we open like Google Earth or a map or something, and we say something like, if an observer would stand here, then this would happen. I think this is what he means with fictitious observer.
Right, but is that true of the AE map? Because he said the fictitious observer was in the center of the map, but surely the observer is above the AE map.
It's a load of twaddle. It's like you say, you insert stout in. Oh, the elevation wasn't where they said it was. Well, it's close enough so that ships using this type of navigation didn't go aground when they used to without it. It's close enough. Yeah. So what resolution is he talking about? I'm sure MC2 would have something to say about that.
Right.
You know, it's just twaddle. It's just twaddle. He there's a lot of verbal tap dancing there to get and Jeran made a good point. Where is your map? Where is your map where everything's laid out, everything's the size it should be? Where is it? You know, it's just there's no answer to that. To this day, they're all pretending that there hasn't been, you know, a 2 millennia long endeavor in cartography and geodesy. They pretend that all of that's a lie, or they're naive, or they're deceptive, or they just got it wrong, or no one understands it, or you know you can't. It's you know it's just. This is all they got left now.
It is nice to see, isn't it?
Yeah, they're pretending that we haven't mapped it. They're pretending we don't know the distances between the continents. They say things like, "Oh, you talk about Australia being, you know, radically the wrong size." He goes, "Oh, yeah, we're not sure about Australia. We're not even sure it actually is in respect to relation to anything else." I mean, what twaddle?
Yeah.
But that's the same tactic as just using the whole fallacy thing. Right?
Sure.
Fallacy this, fallacy that. I'm either reflecting or just trying to obfuscate, or I'm just trying to like pivot to something else.
You say things like, "Oh, well, if you travel from Peru to here or there to there, or the distances and the times, yeah, that's just affirming the consequent." I mean, then what they're now they're using the term affirming the consequence to mean if you have any evidence which correlates the position, you're affirming the consequence.
Right.
Where do we go from there?
If you've got any idea about anything and you do something in reality that confirms your idea, then you're affirming the consequent.
I know. What can you do with that?
Right.
I'm sad he did not use my fallacy. Whatever.
Again, no, I think it boils down to them seeing everything in terms of globe evidence being presented to them to prove that the Earth's a globe. You know, if that's always their starting point, then it's easier to pretend there's an affirming the consequent going on, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, let's have a bit more.
What? Stellarium is right when it tells you what the angle would be from the mountain.
Yes, the thing is that we're talking about the input, the one measurement you're making is the actual observer. The observer is making that measurement. What's the time that the star is occulted by that mountain? And then we're going to compare that. It makes a perfectly straight line where it wouldn't on a globe. And so what all the globe proponents have been trying to do is claim refraction, trying to find out any way they can to claim refraction. And they can't with this, though, because it's occulted. It isn't there. It's not even there to talk about, to invoke refraction. It's not even applicable. So the sky doesn't help the like if we act like these always just get thrown under the rug. These are like major problems. So we're claiming the globe is a physical geometry changing our physical positioning, and that's why we see the sky the way we do. Then how come whenever we start to get down where hyperbolic visual space would be expected to converge, that's what we see. We can't use the globe or we can't even navigate. Then we try to make corrections. We have to use plane measurements, plane trig, plane geometry to even make the corrections for the refraction that we're presupposing. So this is a major problem for the globe. And this, I want to hit something meta, and I'm going to give it back to you. This is the meta part here, right? That you're like, because this is what I don't understand, right? I believe you that you're saying you don't understand how I'm still a flat earther. You don't get it. I went there with you, and how do I not see it? And you think that, I'm not stupid. You don't get it. This is how
you know something I don't.
Okay, well, how I feel though, right, is like, I don't understand how if there is an entire list of refutations, geometric refutations that need to be addressed, if I come over here and I see something that we previously just didn't have access to, that was the issue. We didn't have reliable access to it. That's how we felt. So that we went and verified it. How am I going to see that and then be like, okay, wow, I don't really know exactly how that would work on a flat Earth. And then somehow it just nullifies the whole other list, because you're saying, right? You're saying you're bringing up the appeal to incredulity. And if we just do that, what are we just going to sit here forever? Because what I'm saying is, you're saying it can't be true because you don't understand how it could be true, which is an appeal to incredulity. And you're saying, well, then were you just going to sit here and not know how stuff works forever? Apply that same thing to your side. When I ask you about this star, it's going to be, we don't know how it works. It's going to be, think about the long list of refutations of the globe. Currently, your response to all of them is going to be like, I don't know how it works.
Well, I don't know any. So you're telling me there's observations that you just said that it doesn't work, that we do 69 miles. But let me just say this. So if you know what your degree of latitude means, right? So if we're talking about the difference between 42 degrees and 32 degrees, we know that that's 10 degrees. And so we know that is the distance between those two locations would be 690 miles. So are you saying that if we measured it, it wouldn't work out? I don't understand how you can say it doesn't work, yet it's how the world is mapped.
No, I'm saying that generally speaking, that relationship is somewhat accurate. We're actually using planar geometry to even do it. And if you were to go into the real world and try to let's just assume there's a globe and it's one degree per 69 miles, and I'm actually like, oh, look, it's kind of cloudy up above me, but I see some stars that are like 10, 15 degrees above the horizon. If I actually start navigating using that, I will not be able to do it. If I assume there's a globe, it won't work. And that's a major problem, because this side would predict that. My prediction would be that.
That's how they sailed boats. That's how they sailed boats. That's how they found the South Pole. That's how they found the North Pole. Everything that they've done is through the stars, and you're just throwing it away and saying, "Oh, we can't. We wouldn't get anywhere. We wouldn't actually be accurate." But that's
no. I'm saying, yes. There's no doubt that we have a well-established relationship between the sky and how we navigate. Like, no one can dispute that. Okay. But the point is, like, why? Why is it the way that it is? Why do we see it the way it is? Why are we able to use it reliably? You're saying it's because it's a globe. We're physically changing our angle, our orientations, making the stars look different, right? That's the claim. But in reality, that doesn't match the evidence. I'm saying, well, we're on a plane, and the way that we see is not in these perfect, infinite straight lines. That's factually not true. We can even disprove it with railroad tracks. So we would expect there to be a pretty solid relationship right in the middle, the little sweet spot, until we get to the extremities where it's going to then converge and become logarithmic. That's literally what we see. With curved visual space is what we see.
So
we mapped it out. We mapped it out is what I'm saying. It's reliable because we mapped it out. There's no doubt that's how we see the sky. The debate is about, why do we see the sky that way?
Yeah, I get you. Because I just measured from 20 degrees to 30 degrees, and it's exactly 687 miles, which is what you would expect, 69 times 10. And then what I'm saying is, so those two are not within the refraction zone, being at 20 and 30 degrees. So what you could do is then just move here and do it again for another 10 degrees, do it again for another 10 degrees, and you would keep going until you've done 24,901. That's the whole sphere. You're saying at some point that would break down. That's a paradox. Where does it break down? Where does it fall apart? Where does the Earth stop conforming to being a sphere? Because it does everywhere else. Just like, so the next thing I wanted to get into, and that's just...
Well, wait up, though. Like, I want to bring up a flat Earth evidence.
Okay.
Because, like, realistically, the star being occulted by the mountain is not answered, right? Like...
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a kind of a new thing that I think that people are working through right now. I don't fully understand it because of the fact that you're using stellarium, which is giving you the curved Earth angles, correct? It's not giving you flat Earth angles. It's giving you curved Earth angles. But you're saying you're taking a location from where stellarium is not even talking about. You're further back than that, right? Stellarium is just telling you where the mountain top to the star is. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
you're drawing your location back here and saying, oh, now if we draw an angle to that mountaintop. Right, so you're kind of adding something that Stellarium is not accounting for.
Well, that's the whole point. Is like the one measurement you're taking is you're standing there, you're looking at the star, you're looking at the mountain. Once the star is occulted by the mountain, boom, write the time down. Okay.
So why wouldn't refraction come into play? I don't understand what you mean by that.
Because okay, well now the star's occulted. We're accounting for the position of the star once we're not even seeing it. It's occulted. So how are we going to say the position of the star is just because it's being refracted? It's not. It's about an
Couldn't it be
occultation.
somewhere? So when we see the sun set, they say that it's actually still above the horizon, right? It's gone, but it's still there, or whatever. You know, it's always somewhere about a half a degree off of where we think. So that would be the same with stars, meaning that if you're counting when a star gets occulted by a mountain, it would make a difference as to where it's refracted to. Is it refracted above the mountain, below the mountain? Is it? I would think that that would matter, but it doesn't matter in your case because you're not actually taking any information from the location that you're at. You're just measuring. Stellarium's not taking that into account at all, correct? Am I correct in that? Stellarium doesn't know that you're taking an observation of the, it's just telling you from a mountaintop to this star, this is the angle, correct? That's correct. That's what Stellarium's telling you. And then you're saying, well, if we step back further and measure to that mountain, then it matches a planar angle. And does that, I guess where I'm confused is that then matches Stellarium or doesn't?
No, it doesn't match. It doesn't match.
Who's saying that it's a planar angle? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Not Stellarium.
No, this is the issue. It doesn't match the globe, right? The globe claims that the 69 mile per degree is a physical, like a real physical effect. We're physically tipping away. It's not an optical effect. It's not an apparent effect. It's a physical effect. We're physically moving, right? Sure. So, okay, well, the star gets occulted by the mountain, and then if the fact that we can connect that observation with a perfect straight line, right, shows that there isn't a physical effect of 69 miles per degree because of globe geometry. It can't be. And the flat Earth prediction is exactly what it's supposed to be, but the globe is significantly different. The default, everyone just always says refraction to everything. So that's all that they say. And you said it's kind of a new thing. Well, it's been months, right? And the globe is just keep on trying to find different ways to say somehow it is refraction, but it's not actually optical.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was funny at me to the beginning because this is when I was answering everybody about we don't look at lights in the sky to figure out the shape of the Earth, and then 2 weeks later, this celestial theodolite comes out, which is looking at lights in the sky to figure out the shape of the ground. So I just kind of dismissed it on its face, and I guess I'll look into it a little bit more. But I guess I still want to go back to what you said because it still doesn't make sense to me. Why couldn't we just measure in 10-degree segments on the Earth to stay away from this?
Oh, you can. But
right, so we would calculate, and that would come out to 24,901.
That doesn't. But you're saying why can't we just avoid the part that falsifies the presupposition that we're on a globe? Because I don't want to. Because I'm bringing up that it falsifies the globe. You know, like.
Right, but if there's refraction, that's why we're not taking those angles because they'll be off. So if we just take the angles that we can see, this say from 15 to 80 or 90, well, that is sufficient to get us to the shape of the Earth.
But they use empirically derived formulas to correct the stars, so that they use actual observations with planar geometry to actually make the corrections with cell nav, which is not the same as like Snell's law, like refraction. They actually have to use planar geometry to try to make these corrections. And you're just. I will say it is somewhat baffling that you're able to just default to.
No, I'm not able to default
so comfortably now.
No, it's not that it's so comfortable. It's that they have an explanation that has been measured and does show to be the case. I've seen examples of refraction myself, but here's what I want to go back to. If people understand that the latitude that you're at is your angle to Polaris, there is no getting around that. If you measure your angle to Polaris tonight from wherever you're at, it will be your latitude. So if we know then that somebody at 45 is going to see Polaris at 45 degrees and that somebody at 35 is going to see it at 35 degrees, then we just need to measure the distance between a person at 35 and 45, and guess what you'll get? 690 miles every single time. Because the Earth is a sphere and it works as in a linear fashion like that, or I don't know what you would call that, in a very equal action like that. Every 69 miles, 1 degree, and that's how we have the whole Earth is mapped.
That was fun, wasn't it? So, the celestial theodolite. Anyone got anything?
Has already been debunked as hell because Jesse Path of Light has already shown that it's essentially just taking advantage of because you're so small, because we're small and the mountain is a relatively small height above a surface in which the star is a long way away. you can change it as according to, you can change it from a flat Earth to a concave Earth to a convex Earth, depending upon how far away from the mountain you are. It's a flawed method.
Yeah, this Heffron method, he reified the math to fit a particular observation, which he can say is flat Earth evidence. But you get further away from the mountain, or use a mountain of a different elevation or different altitude, whatever, and it doesn't work. Several of their own observations actually are favor the globe rather than flat Earth.
I see.
Yeah,
so they're just picking a particular spot. They've sort of reversed the maths and then figured out where they need to stand to get this particular result.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of other major problems with it. I mean, like you say, Witsit says, "Oh, the moment that star disappears, we know the time, and refraction hasn't got anything to do with that." Well, the light can be refracted from the star across the atmosphere over the top of the mountain to you, same as the horizon. There's nothing you've eliminated, really.
Right, and I don't understand why. I mean, this could be me saying something stupid, but why couldn't the top of the mountain just be refracted up slightly?
It could be.
Wouldn't that come into play here?
It would.
I should read out. Real Cygnus says, refractionless time that Jesse destroyed. Even his Heffron angle matched the globe better than flat in all cases, and he calls it matches perfectly, bro. So that seemed to be something of a refutation of this. It's just I did ask when MC Toon was in, I asked him about it, and he just said, oh well, he's using stellarium, and I thought, I didn't think that was a great refutation, but anyway, it's good to hear a bit more about it. I'm glad you've spent a bit of time on it, Pazza. And others, of course. Right, let's see what's next, because I don't know.
1 degree, and that's how we have the whole Earth is mapped. Now, I want to ask...
it's calculated. It's a calculated presupposition based on the actual astronomical latitude.
How is it a presupposition if it's the measurement of miles?
Yeah, it's not a measurement. You measure one... Okay.
But I'm saying I just think if we measured...
That's the time of, like, open...
That's the open cross exam time.
Yeah, that's really short.
30 minutes has been completed.
Yeah,
schedule number 2. I guess schedule number 2 we'll get some other stuff, because I had some other things I wanted to show people. But I do think, Austin, one thing that, and maybe I'll find something specific for you, but I think that you need to watch my show. I get it. I do too many live streams. You don't want to watch it. I get it. But it's also the same thing that every other flat earther's done. So all I see is people running around saying, we don't understand what Jeran's doing. We don't understand. But I've literally done an entire series, an unplugged series of 12 episodes, where I went through every single evidence and every single piece and explained it thoroughly. So if people don't understand my position, or why do I just accept refraction? Well, it's because once I saw that the South operates as the globe calls for, and then we saw the sun setting right to left in the South. So that immediately, let me give one example, because I think it's my best proof that nobody's been able to, come up with an answer for. And I didn't even know this. I've never heard a glober say it. But everybody who's in the North, when you look at a sunrise or sunset, so I'm talking about looking east or west only, not north, not south. We're looking at sunrise or sunset. The sun will rise left to right, and it will set left to right in the North for every single person every day of the year, no matter what. End of story. In the South, they see the opposite thing. Okay, so every single sunrise for every single person in the South for every day of the year goes right to left, and every single sunset goes right to left. When we were in Punta Arenas, we saw the sunset severely right to left, way different than we've ever seen before. The sun's never done that to any of us in our lives, because the South is the inverse of the North. Now, get this. This is the paradox of flat Earth. Can an item that's going in one direction be seen by two people looking in the same direction to be going in opposite directions? I know it sounds convoluted, but if you have two people in the North and the South both looking west at the same sunset, we're talking about the same sunset, can they see it going in opposite directions if the Earth is flat? How would that be possible, right? So you'd have a sun going around, and you'd have people south and north looking west, the sun's setting, so it would always go to the right. On any flat Earth that there'll ever be, it'll go to the right. But we saw it going to the left. Now, here's the crazy thing. Do you know if somebody on the day that we saw the sun set right to left in Punta, if you were in the North, you saw the sun set left to right. So imagine that. We're in the South watching the sun go left, They're in the north watching the sun go right. That's a paradox on a flat Earth. How could you have two people looking the same direction, have a sun going in two opposite directions? Well, the reason is there is a shape that would call for that to happen. There's a shape that
Jeran,
says...
do you want me to submit that question to Austin? Austin, do you want to answer that question real quick before we move on to the next segment?
Well, I'm ready to move on. I want to make like a meta point though that I feel like everyone wants to say. Since you kind of got that off, give me like a 30-second thing and then we'll move on. Whatever. This is the issue.
I'll give you 1 minute.
Okay.
Take a minute.
I want to say this again. Okay. It's like we saw something we didn't previously have access to. It requires affirming the consequent. You don't know how it works on the globe. You reify the AE model. I get all that. It doesn't automatically wash out all the geometric refutations of why flat Earth is a thing in the first place. That is my point. That is my point, though. You would have to then diligently, logically, go provide sufficient rebuttals to all of those geometric refutations, where it doesn't matter what you're still stuck with.
What happened to falsification is independent of replacement?
That's my point. That's my point.
What do you mean?
Right?
The globe's didn't you say I have to replace those things? I thought you're saying I have to do that.
No, I'm saying you actually have to address the geometric refutations, not replace anything. You're asking us to replace the globe explanation. Wait, you're asking us to replace the globe explanation, or it must be a globe. That's what you're doing. I'm saying we falsified the globe explanation over here with like 100 things, and then you're just you have selective amnesia.
Charles is asking, Jeran, how does an observation of the sky change what the floor is?
Okay, because it's something called a measuring stick, right? So just like you can use a ruler, why can we use a ruler to go measure things? Because it's a standard. Every ruler is the same, and so we can use it as a measuring stick. The sun is the biggest and most accurate measuring stick that the world has ever known. It's the most important thing that there ever was. And it is a measuring stick because it moves in very predictable 24-hour fashions. We know exactly where it will be in 400 years, 4,000 years, 40,000 years. We know exactly where it was 2,000 years ago. So that's because the sun works as a measuring stick. So once somebody gives you a map and tells you you live here, the very first thing you should do is see if it jives with the known measuring stick. Because if it doesn't, then guess what? The map is wrong, period. There is no instance of ever a measuring stick being wrong when it's actually the measuring stick, right? So you can never have, oh, this measuring is wrong because this ruler's wrong. Well, then the ruler's not a measuring stick if it's wrong. Just like the sun. It wouldn't be a measuring device if it was wrong. It's perfect. That's why we use it for calendars, for dates, for time, everything, time, you name it. The sun is used for that. So if you can observe something that is not possible on the map somebody gives you, then you can immediately hand them the map back and say, you're wrong, I don't live here. Well, guess what? That's what the AE map has had happen. Now I get Austin's point. He's saying he doesn't believe in an AE map, but then then you don't believe in anything. Then the Earth doesn't have a shape or a look. Can you give me any idea what the world looks like? Because if you're going to tell me it's a flat Earth, then it has to be flat. And I know that the only flat map that can exist is the AE map. Now, you can disagree with that all you want. I spent 6 months trying to figure it out, and then I got to the point where I said, oh, because the AE map because a flat map has to have the continents laid out correctly, has to have the tropics and the equator, therefore the only map that will ever be flat is the AE map. Now, you could say I think Austin said there's a bipolar model. That completely destroys all observations. Again, if you have a bipolar model, the sun would be coming up the other side, so it would be rising in the west to people in Russia and Africa. It doesn't make any sense. That's why you've never heard it pushed, because this is why there's no other map pushed. Have you ever wondered why there's no other flat Earth map?
Thank you, Jeran.
Let me know when the 2 minutes are up, just last time. Or give me a 10, 20
I try to give you a little bit of a grace period afterward so that we're not too strict. Austin, you have 2 minutes. The question is, how does an observation of the sky change what the floor is?
Yeah. So it's independent of physical measurements of the surface. It is. But my approach is that you don't just like turn your head to things. Right. So I'm all for trying to understand it, right? Because again, actually seeing the occultation of that star, well, that's actually technically in the sky. Now differences. We're using a physical measurement of the surface there, right? So we have a linear baseline, a specific angle that creates a straight line from observer to mountain peak to star, and there's an occultation. It's physical. And then hopefully there'll be a question about cell nav in here where I can hopefully explain and correct exactly the issue with the globe there. But I will just say, to answer the question more directly, it's like, actually it doesn't. You don't prove the surface of the Earth strictly by making a singular celestial observation, or any celestial observation for that matter. It requires a lot of presuppositions, and just frankly may not be the answer people want to hear. It is just an affirming the consequent. To say the 24-hour sun in Antarctica proves the globe requires a logical fallacy. It like literally requires it, and then shifting the burden, appeal to incredulity, etc. So that's the issue with it. The reason that it doesn't prove what the ground is because it requires affirming the consequent and presupposing what you're seeing the sky from in the first place.
Oh, they keep catching me out, these clips. I've got no landmark really to know when they finish. Normally I've got a little bit of an idea where the end is, but anyway, yeah, I mean, his entire list of geometric refutations that need to be addressed. I think, was that in the previous clip? I don't know. I'm getting them a bit blurred. But what entire list of geometric refutations that need to be addressed?
Oh, as per Witsit on that one, that's going to be Mount Canigou with the silhouette, and that's the Silhouette Mountain, and that's also going to be the celestial theodolite.
Right.
He seems to think that these things that in no way, shape, or form show that the Earth is flat are mathematical refutations.
But they've all of those things have been addressed. There's no flat Earth thing that they've said that hasn't been addressed, is there? There isn't a single observation that they've made or anything where, I mean, okay, the answer is usually refraction, right? I mean, it just is. That's the way of things. But there isn't a single one that hasn't been addressed. Usually to the nth detail as well,
The one that they haven't ever addressed, which they can't really, is that if you're on the top of a mountain and you get angles to all the stars around you, particularly ones above you rather than the horizon, then you've got someone simultaneously at the bottom of the mountain nearby, they get all the same angles. Now, how does that work with your perspective?
Yeah, interesting.
It's almost like the things. The only that it would work is if the things were a long, long way away. Oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Also, I really, really like the example of the sun, right, left to right. It's basically if two people look in the same direction, both look at the south. One is on the northern hemisphere, one is on the southern hemisphere, and for one the sun goes in one direction, and for the other sun goes in the other direction. That's true. On a globe, it works perfectly.
Yeah.
If it doesn't,
as he said, it isn't an argument most of us have made, is it? But it's a good argument, I think.
Now that actually is a mathematical refutation, a geometric refutation, if you will, of a flat Earth, and yet somehow Austin doesn't understand that.
Right.
Because all you've done there is you've just affirmed the consequence with a presupposition. Fallacy.
Yeah. All right.
Austin does realize that affirming the consequent does not actually apply to the scientific method.
Right. All right, let's move on. Let's have a bit more.
Anonymous is asking, is cartography real? Why does every map of a large area require distortion?
Yeah. Is that for him?
This is for both of you. So, Jeran, you can go first.
Well, obviously, because the Earth is a sphere, and so no matter what map you ever make, will always have issues, because a sphere has a certain amount of surface area, and a flat piece of paper will always have more, and so you're always going to have distortions.
Okay, Austin?
I'm trying to get it to where we're both on the big screen when we answer, but yeah, because it's simply a projection. You're trying to fit a projection. You're trying to fit measurements, usually typically using the sky, and then put it on a projection. So it's always going to have distortion, and just depends on how you move it around. The bipolar model, ironically, it's like exactly the same as the globe. You can move it around 5-10 degrees, whatever direction. It is literally just a distribution with a projection, right? It's just a projection, and you use a fictitious observer for a central point. So the answer is like, yeah, there's always distortion because they are just projections. They're inherently flawed, right? Like none of them are actual realities.
When you say fictitious observer, do you mean that they take the person to be at the center of the Earth?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, but that is the same angle that you'd be on the surface. It's the same angle.
Yeah, but you're just like admitting that. Yeah, you just have to presuppose the idea of some fictitious observer in the center of a globe.
You don't have to. It could be on the surface. It'd be the same angle. You're just taking that and saying that it means something, but it doesn't mean anything because it's the same angle.
Well, if you actually utilize that method and then take the distances, then everything's 3,959 miles away from you in the sky.
Right. No, I'm saying that if you're talking about the angle from the fictitious observer to the celestial sphere is the same regardless of if you're at the middle or on the surface. Because the line would go through that person on the surface, right?
Yeah, but you to know where you allegedly would be on the surface to get that angle, you have to actually have the sphere, thus the center of it, to go get that angle in the first place. You would say, yeah, if you do have the sphere, you assume the fictitious observer in the center, then you're on the surface, it's the same. Yeah, because the angle has to still come out from the center to actually claim that that's what the angle is in relation to. It requires a fictitious observer in the center. Right.
So I guess where I'm getting confused, I just want to go back to where, when we keep talking about, you're saying it's an affirming the consequent. Where I get confused, isn't that just a wording thing? So if we say, if the Earth is a sphere of 3959 in circumference, then the horizon can be no more than blah, 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 when we just leave out refraction from that equation. But let's just leave the equation alone. So can't I word then my supposition the same way? So can I say, if the Earth is flat and the sun goes around in a circle, in a clockwise circle, then there can be no 24-hour sun in Antarctica. There is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, so the Earth is not flat. What's wrong with? I just worded it exactly like your black swan. Why is that not okay?
I didn't even hear exactly how you said it.
Okay, so the black swan is if the Earth is a sphere of 3959 miles. So that's the presupposition. You have to make that assumption. Okay, if the Earth is a sphere and if it's 3959, then the horizon can only be this distance based on this math. We go out and observe and it's actually not that. Therefore, we've now falsified the globe. Okay, so if we change that to now, if the Earth is flat and it has a sun that goes around in 24 hours in a clockwise motion, then the south cannot have a sun that circles the opposite direction. And if it does, we go out and observe. Guess what? We went and saw that it does do that. Therefore, the flat Earth has been falsified. What's different about my claim than the flat Earth?
Because you're just like claiming there's like no apparent sun, and then strawmanning putting the argument or putting
you're
the claim
doing the same thing with refraction.
No,
nothing here says nothing.
The globe model is just claimed. There's just a definitive geometric claim. There's a physical geometric horizon. So like,
what do you think? So what's not claimed in a flat Earth? Do we claim that the sun goes around? Yes.
Well,
so we've had an additional 2 minutes back and forth on top of each other's answers.
Let's finish that one though. I want to finish that because this has bothered me the whole time. Is that I don't understand how Nathan Oakley goes around telling people.
Let me give you guys 3 minutes, and I'm going to pause the timer. Okay.
Thank you. So I just want to know why it's not the same. So in that sentence, if the Earth is a sphere, 3959, then the horizon can be no further. Okay, great. But what they're not mentioning there is that there's refraction that causes things to be higher up. So when we do go observe, if we do see it a little higher up, that doesn't falsify the globe. It means refraction is there. Now, I'm just saying it doesn't mean that that's a fact. It means if that's the claim by the globe, then we have to at least look into it, not just dismiss it. But when I try and put that into a flat Earth saying, now all of a sudden it's not allowed. I can't say if the Earth is flat and has a sun circling 24 hours in a clockwise formation. Those two things are part of the flat Earth model. So it's the same thing as saying if the Earth is a sphere 3959. Then they say, then the horizon can be no more than, well, then the sun cannot do backward circles in the south. It doesn't go along with our premise at the beginning of this. We went and observed it does do backward circles in the south, so therefore the Earth cannot be flat. So I agree. I would actually agree that that is not a correct statement, but I'm actually trying to point out more that the flat Earth statement is incorrect. That you can't just, because they didn't even take refraction into account. I don't understand how you go around telling other people that they are using and affirming the consequent when that's what the flat Earth is doing. They're saying, oh, well, we don't see curvature, therefore the Earth's flat. Hey, we don't see water bend, therefore the Earth's flat. You are the ones doing that. No, that's, so I don't understand where there's this, globe Earth is doing that, but the flat Earth, we just say that the Earth's not a globe. And no, you're going around making claims, and those claims are, not holding up when you actually, like, water doesn't bend. What? Water does bend. It's probably the most bendable substance that there is. Go pour it on your body. Does it bend around you? All right, go ahead.
Austin, what's your response here?
Okay, yeah, this is an argument from ignorance. So it's like X is true because you cannot prove that X is false. There's the assumption of a conclusion, like because of the lack of evidence to the contrary, right? And that's an argument from ignorance. But it's very specific. For one, I want to say this. You're saying like you didn't even account for refraction. You keep saying that. Like, okay, no, just because someone said a word because they needed to say that something is not where it's supposed to be, doesn't mean that it's real. What type of refraction? Terrestrial refraction? How does that work? All of a sudden, when they change what refraction is and apply it to something that isn't even analogous, and take the actual physical horizon and say something's looming when you can move it around 5, 10 degrees, whatever direction. It is literally just a distribution with a projection, right? It's just a projection, and you use a fictitious observer for a central point. So the answer is like, yeah, there's always distortion because they are just projections. They're inherently flawed, right? Like none of them are actual realities.
When you say fictitious observer, do you mean that they take the person to be at the center of the Earth?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, but that is the same angle that you'd be on the surface. It's the same angle. So
Yeah, but you're just like admitting that. Yeah, you just have to presuppose the idea of some fictitious observer in the center of a globe.
You don't have to. It could be on the surface. It'd be the same angle. You're just taking that and saying that it means something, but it doesn't mean anything because it's the same angle.
Well, if you actually utilize that method and then take the distances, then everything's 3,959 miles away from you in the sky.
Right. No, I'm saying that if you're talking about the angle from the fictitious observer to the celestial sphere is the same regardless of if you're at the middle or on the surface. Because the line would go through that person on the surface, right?
Yeah, but you to know where you allegedly would be on the surface to get that angle, you have to actually have the sphere, thus the center of it, to go get that angle in the first place. You would say, yeah, if you do have the sphere, you assume the fictitious observer in the center, then you're on the surface, it's the same. Yeah, because the angle has to still come out from the center to actually claim that that's what the angle is in relation to. It requires a fictitious observer in the center. Right.
So I guess where I'm getting confused, I just want to go back to where, when we keep talking about, you're saying it's an affirming the consequent. Where I get confused, isn't that just a wording thing? So if we say, if the Earth is a sphere of 3959 in circumference, then the horizon can be no more than blah, 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 when we just leave out refraction from that equation. But let's just leave the equation alone. So can't I word then my supposition the same way? So can I say, if the Earth is flat and the sun goes around in a circle, in a clockwise circle, then there can be no 24-hour sun in Antarctica. There is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, so the Earth is not flat. What's wrong with? I just worded it exactly like your black swan. Why is that not okay?
I didn't even hear exactly how you said it.
Okay, so the black swan is if the Earth is a sphere of 3959 miles. So that's the presupposition. You have to make that assumption. Okay, if the Earth is a sphere and if it's 3959, then the horizon can only be this distance based on this math. We go out and observe and it's actually not that. Therefore, we've now falsified the globe. Okay, so if we change that to now, if the Earth is flat and it has a sun that goes around in 24 hours in a clockwise motion, then the south cannot have a sun that circles the opposite direction. And if it does, we go out and observe. Guess what? We went and saw that it does do that. Therefore, the flat Earth has been falsified. What's different about my claim than the flat Earth?
Because for one, you're just like claiming there's like no apparent sun, and then strawmanning putting the argument or putting the claim
doing the same thing with refraction.
No.
Nothing here says nothing.
The globe model is just claimed. There's just a definitive geometric claim. There's a physical geometric horizon. So like,
what do you think? So what's not claimed in a flat Earth? Do we claim that the sun goes around? Yes.
Well,
so we've had an additional 2 minutes back and forth on top of each other's answers.
Let's finish that one though. I want to finish that because this has bothered me the whole time. Is that I don't understand how Nathan Oakley goes around telling people.
Let me give you guys 3 minutes, and I'm going to pause the timer. Okay.
Thank you.
We seemed to get some of that twice, didn't we? Somehow I don't quite know how that happened.
Oh, that's just a déjà vu fallacy.
Yeah.
To answer Jeran's question on how he does that, it's simple. He's disingenuous.
Yeah.
Jeremy
was talking about maps and how we mapped everything, and everything's mapped. We've made maps, and the important thing about making maps is you can do it without looking at the fucking sky, and you can map everything out if you really want to, and things have been mapped. Map the surface map, and then the moment he goes back to Witsit, he goes, oh yeah, it's just a projection. It's just from a fictitious observer. Then he's still talking about this bipolar model, which is one of the projections where it shows the Antarctic and the Arctic in funny places. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Right.
And he's still that's a solution. That one's got an equator that goes off one edge and comes back on the other side.
Right, a Pac-Man map essentially.
Yeah, a Pac-Man sun now.
Right.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. You've got to give up these pretending that it's just a projection. But that's why there's a problem if it's flat. This is what we're saying.
They try to pretend like it just is going to take a larger circle on the equinox, so it's going to go down the equator up until the very end of where it's going to go, and this makes the widest circle around north for the spring equinox. The biggest problem with that is that makes absolutely no goddamn sense, because how is the south getting an equal amount of sunlight if it's taking the longest possible path around the fucking north?
Yeah, and draw the lines of latitude and longitude on that, and then show me moving in all the directions and everything moving in the skies that they only move 69 miles on the ground. I fucking dare you.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's it. You lose the.
We did say that planar geometry, the 69 miles per degree.
When he says planar geometry, he means Euclidean. He's just too stupid to know that the person who came up with the term planar geometry in this, he's just parroting from the Heffron thing.
Yeah, and he said something earlier. He said hyperbolic visual space is a major problem for the globe. Well, hyperbolic, you can't see hyperbolically. We don't see in a hyperbolic sense. We can only imagine it. The hyperbolic visual space is a concept in maths. It's a perception in maths, but you don't actually see it. It's impossible.
Yeah, but they've all read the same article Gleam has, and they still don't understand it. So therefore, it's true.
Yeah, but let's say he asserts we do see in that way, but that's the problem. We went towards the horizon. We see in a hyperbolic visual space. It's fucking horseshit.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, at one point I did notice he said it's literally just a distribution of a projection. And I just thought, what utter bollocks. What the fuck does that even mean? You know?
I mean, if they don't believe me, go and put it in Google. And the first thing Google says about 3 lines down is, while it's impossible to experience true hyperbolic space with our eyes, there are many ways to project it into the Euclidean space for our own visualization. That's literally telling you that when you say hyperbolic visual space, you're not talking about your visual function at all.
Right.
So how you can use it to describe something that you can see that everyone in the real world, including the mathematicians who fucking come up with it, that you can't see, is beyond me. But it sounds good, doesn't it? Hyperbolic.
Well, I guess the idea of it is he's got some nice big words there. Most people aren't going to have a fucking clue what that is when somebody says it. And that's the main thing, isn't it? Most people like, I wouldn't have a fucking clue when I hear that. I don't know what that means.
No, sure.
You're a clever person, Pazza. You know what it means, but I don't fucking.
Well, I know enough of what it means to know that he's talking to a codswallop. I'm not an expert on geometry. I've done a bit of maths, but there's clearly enough. It's just like everything he says. You think, oh, that rattled off the tongue quite well. But if you dig in, you soon start to see that it's just a veneer of eloquence and an escalation of words which all seem to fit together, but it's just leaky as fuck still.
Right.
Yeah, there actually is a fallacy associated with that. It's called argumentum ad verbosum, which is also the argument by intimidation, where you quite literally use topics, words, and concepts that sound complicated enough to prevent people from attempting to refute you.
Right. Oh, Witsit's an expert at that one, isn't he? What's it called again? What?
Argumentum ad verbosum, or argument by intimidation.
Right. Yeah, he definitely does that. All right, shall we have a bit more? If we find in this clip that we're watching something we've already watched, please let me know, because I've watched this through so many times it becomes a bit of a blur, after a bit. So, and then we'll just have to shoot it on to the next one. Thank you very much for that super chat, Flashburn, who says Witsit is talking hyperbolics. Nice one. Just a reminder, if you are enjoying the content, please feel free to super chat the show, or even better, click one of the links in the description to either my Patreon or, even better than that, my PayPal, so I get all of the money straight away. That would be very, very gratefully received if anybody can chip in a few quid to keep my head above water, etc. Right, let's push on. What's next?
So I just want to know why it's not the same. So in that sentence, if the Earth is a sphere, 3959, then horizon can be no further. Okay, great. But what they're not mentioning there is that there's refraction that causes things to be higher up. So when we do go observe, if we do see it a little higher up, that doesn't falsify the globe. It means refraction is there. Now, I'm just saying it doesn't mean that that's a fact. It means if that's the claim by the globe, then we have to at least look into it, not just dismiss it. But when I try and put that into a flat Earth saying, now all of a sudden it's not allowed. I can't say if the Earth is flat then and has a sun circling 24 hours in a clockwise formation. Those two things are part of the flat Earth model. So it's the same thing as saying if the Earth is a sphere 3959. Then they say, then the horizon can be no more than, well, then the sun cannot do backward circles in the south. It doesn't go along with our premise at the beginning of this. We went and observed it does do backward circles in the south, so therefore the Earth cannot be flat. So I agree. I would actually agree that that is not a correct statement, but I'm actually trying to point out more that the flat Earth statement is incorrect. That you can't just, because they didn't even take refraction into account. I don't understand how you go around telling other people that they are using and affirming the consequent when that's what the flat Earth is doing. They're saying, oh, well, we don't see curvature, therefore the Earth's flat. Hey, we don't see water bend, therefore the Earth's flat. You are the ones doing that. No, that's, so I don't understand where there's this, globe Earth is doing that, but the flat Earth, we just say that the Earth's not a globe. And no, you're going around making claims, and those claims are, not holding up when you actually, like water doesn't bend. What? Water does bend. It's probably the most bendable substance that there is. Go pour it on your body. Does it bend around you? All right, go ahead.
Austin, what's your response here?
Okay, yeah, this is an argument from ignorance. So it's like X is true because you cannot prove that X is false. There's the assumption of a conclusion, like because of the lack of evidence to the contrary, right? And that's an argument from ignorance. But it's very specific. For one, I want to say this. You're saying like you didn't even account for refraction. You keep saying that. Like, okay, no, just because someone said a word because they needed to say that something is not where it's supposed to be doesn't mean that it's real. What type of refraction? Terrestrial refraction? How does that work? All of a sudden, when they change what refraction is and apply it to something that isn't even analogous and take the actual physical horizon and say something's looming whenever the horizon's looming, when looming is a relation to the horizon, right? They just said the word refraction because the horizon wasn't where it's supposed to be. So when we say, yo, here's a physical geometric limitation based on the assumption that the Earth's a globe, the evidence doesn't match that. That's like a very rigid, specific geometric physical claim that comes from the globe. We tested it.
Let me waz it on slightly, because we have definitely heard this bit before, haven't we? Right? Am I right?
Yeah, we definitely heard this bit before.
Yeah.
And it is interesting that all the things that are going on here, Witsit is effectively stating, oh yeah, well, the Black Swan's a bad argument.
Where can I get?
He doesn't realize that's what he's just said, but he's just stepped in his shoe about it.
I'm not really sure where we are now, but let's 137.40 that says, doesn't it? Oh no, it's not bloody changed. Hang on.
And
right, 143.31. Let me just see. 143. Right, I think we're just about at the end of a clip.
And the other thing is, are you trying to use the Nathan Oakley line that we can't measure angles from a curved baseline? Is that what you kind of are saying something close to that, but I can't tell if it's what you're trying to say is the same thing? When you're saying that we
No.
Okay.
No, but the actual extension of the baseline is a problem for the globe.
What?
Right.
What does that mean?
The globe has a problem with there being a straight line in free space? Fucking hell. What in the blue fuck does he think that?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense at all, does it?
No. We only got a little bit of it, though. Sorry about that. I don't know how this little loop has occurred where we're hearing the same things twice, but we definitely hadn't heard that bit before, had we? So hopefully...
No, that's a fresh lie.
Yeah. All right. Let's hear a bit more then. See where it gets us. We're almost through it now. We've got 4 clips left, I believe. So, and that's assuming there isn't anything else repeated. But anyway, here we go.
So, but if we went outside my house,
another minute on this, and we'll move on.
Thank you. So if I went outside my house, though, Austin, the Earth would not. I mean, the observations would not change if the Earth was flat or a sphere, correct? Of the size that they say.
Wait, what did you say?
So in my front yard, if the Earth was a sphere or if it was flat, would that change my front yard? If the
No.
Earth was okay, so then we can take angles to stars from quote unquote curved baselines because it wouldn't make a difference one way or the other. You're using the latitude, you're using the tangent, which is technically the flat Earth.
Well, technically, like if you want to ask technically, like on the smallest, most imaginable scale ever, our front yards would be different technically, but practically,
Right, okay, but I'm talking about angles. We're taking an angle to Polaris.
Technically, but like practically, no. But the issue is that we utilize an extension of a horizontal baseline. And again, when we actually take these angles and they don't match, we have to make corrections. And what does the globe claim? The globe claims refraction, but do they actually account with refraction formulas? No, they don't take temperature and pressure and make the corrections. They actually take strictly height, strictly angles, and planar geometry to make the corrections. Yeah. So to actually make it work, you have to make the Earth flat on top of acting like it's flat, on top of measuring like it's flat, and then you claim that's the proof it's a globe.
Well, that's what you would do if the globe was the size that they say. You wouldn't start treating it like a sphere when we don't even notice that. You would treat it like it's flat with a tangent. But I just have one question. You said again that if they have to make adjustments. Nobody's making adjustments to their latitude, right? I mean, if I'm 37 degrees because that's my angle to the pole star. There's no adjustment to that. Nobody's adjusting that. If anybody, at least, I mean, I would like to hear somebody tell me that there's a location on the Earth that's off by more than 1 degree. I don't think that's even possible. Like you're telling me that there's somebody at 47 degrees that measures the angle to the Polaris and it's 53 degrees? No.
Well,
what I'm saying, there is no refraction getting in the way of our latitude, and our latitude lines are a certain distance away from each other. And if you measure those out, they equal to the 24,901. So I get that you're saying, oh, that's just some arbitrary math. Well, no, it's not, because we have the Earth mapped. So
okay, but longitude and latitude is how was that accomplished? It was reverse engineered from observations of the sky, right? And then they actually apply correction. They apply correction angles over long distances. Didn't actually go physically measure anything. They do calculative corrections over long distances, right? That's what they do. This is where we go all the way back to what we were talking about earlier, which is like, well, how are we actually seeing? Because you're presupposing we're seeing in perfectly straight lines infinitely, and that the only reason the stars are changing is because I'm tipping over on a ball, and we actually don't see that. So if I say the Earth's a plane and we don't see in perfectly straight geometry, it's curved visual space. You say, no, actually, we see in perfect straight lines infinitely far, and there's nothing between us and the stars is how we can see it, and they're crazy far away. Like, okay, let's go test it out. Which one matches reality? It's actually the first one, because when we start to get to like 15 or even more degrees close to the horizon, it all begins to get logarithmic and compressed in as if it was converging in curved visual space. It would not do that. And it's not just refraction, because again, you're not allowed to use up close to 90. That's where the refraction was supposed to be the least when you're looking straight up, right? That's what they say. They say you look straight up, there should be basically no refraction. Yeah, they cannot use close to 90 because, well, if it's curved visual space on both close to 90 and the edge, you would expect there to be an actual logarithmic change. It wouldn't be a 1-to-1 linear ratio, and that's what we see in reality. And conveniently, they'll never tell you that. We have to go look at the actual manuals and find out, wait a minute, why did they tell me I can't use this? I thought it was super easy, 1 degree per 69 miles. It's not. This makes perfect sense. It's exactly what we expect if visual space is curved. So now we expect it off. It's real simple, like caveman math, let's use straight lines. But, that's what they say.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we need to move on to another question real quick. Casey's asking, I hear ball earthers routinely invoke the argument that flat earthers don't have a map. However, it would seem to require a king's commission for such an undertaking. What kind of assets and costs do you both believe are associated with the creation of map making?
Well,
go first.
We've already done it. You can make observations of the sun. We know where the tropics are. We know where the equator is. Once you have that, you verify the continent shape, which we've pretty much already done, and the layout, which is pretty much already done. So there is, the reason that they say there's no map is there's no map that matches real-world observations. You can draw a flat Earth map and be happy with it if you want. The A map works for just drawing it. And it actually, if you look at Dave's app, it actually kind of shows where the sun would be above for the most part, as long as you don't go too far south. But regardless of that, it might be a king's undertaking, but it would be fruitless because we've already mapped the Earth. And so you're not going to come out with anything. If it's flat, then you would come out with the AE map. I mean, there's no other way. It doesn't matter what you map out. You're not going to get continents. Africa is not going to be on the other side of South America. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen because the sun goes in the order that we know. So therefore, we know the layout of the Earth, and it has been tried on different shapes, and it only works on one. And that's will forever be that way. I've now realized that. There'll never be a way that you can match observations of the what we see with a flat world, because the Earth's not flat. So it's unfortunate, by the way.
Austin, would you like to address this one? What kind of assets and costs do you believe are associated with the creation of map making?
That's something insane that's impossible to even fathom for one, like free exploration. And then, of course, in today's day and age, probably lots of money as well. But it's much more about the resources, the amount of people, and the amount of time that it would actually take to do it. It's not particularly realistic. Like, yeah, sure, we have some maps, but they're just maps. This is actually the problem is people, Jeran, really, you think that there has to be an accurate map of reality, and there will never be one. There will never be one. There's not even one of the globe. You think the globe is accurate, but you're correct. The globe,
you're not going to let you say that.
wait. The globe is made from a coordinate system. The globe is made from a coordinate system. That's all that it is. You presuppose the actual sphere. Then you're going to look at the sky. You're going to reverse engineer the coordinate system. Then you're going to make the map based on that coordinate system. That's why you're going to always have distortion. Right. It's just a projection, and you can move the center around, and then it changes. Am I lagging?
Are you saying the globe? The globe has you just said that the globe is a projection, or is the globe an actual model of the Earth?
The map's a projection. All the maps are projections.
I'm not talking about a map. I'm talking about the globe Earth. The globe model with the 3D globe with some people on this side, some people on this side, some people upside down from the other people. That map, that globe model.
What about it?
Well, because it's
made from a coordinate system.
Yeah, that's how you would make it. That's how would you make it?
Do you not get the point though? It's not about how you would make anything. It's like we just make the coordinate system using the sky, reverse engineer it, and then we make the maps based on that. So, so you have to presuppose it again. You have to reify and affirm.
Sure, but that's what you do. If you're going to test things, you presuppose something and then see if it matches observations. So if we presuppose a flat Earth, we notice that it doesn't match observations. If you presuppose a globe, it does. That's the difference.
Well, first of all, coordinate systems are not the same as like physical datum, like physical measurements. And we actually take physical measurements and take actual datum. They're horizontal consistently. This is what we keep on talking about. We take the coordinate system, we presuppose the globe, we make a coordinate system, reverse engineer it, then we're going to make projections and maps. That's why maps are so blown out of proportion in this discussion. They're useless. That doesn't matter. When it comes to the truth of the matter, it doesn't matter at all. Literally.
The map is flat, and a flat map can never match the real world. That's why.
Just in general, the maps are just projections. They're just merely conceptual and they can be changed around. This is the important part. This is the important part.
If the Earth was flat, wouldn't we be able to map it? Easily.
No, the problem is, again, the way that we act. Could we, in theory? Sure, maybe. But the actual problem is the way that we did it, which is we took a coordinate system. We created a coordinate system. So they presuppose the globe, they reify it, and then take coordinate systems based on that, and then they make a map, and then they create that projection, and we can move it around however we want to. But they don't take, again, this is the difference. Calculative assumption that creates the coordinate system or physically, empirically measured datum on the surface, which always matches flat. This goes back to what we were talking about. Where, okay, well, we can find out the truth of the matter. Let's go look and see what happens when we move along the Earth. When we move along the Earth, we cannot assume it's a globe. It doesn't work. We have to make corrections. Oh, it's refraction. Okay, then let's go. What do we have to correct for? Pressure and temperature and optical variables in the sky, right? No, that's not how we make the corrections. We make physical measurements, empirically derived corrections with just angles and height, and we have to fix and cook the books because the globe doesn't match. So that proves that the actual coordinate system isn't correct. So how do we get the coordinate system? Because however we got it isn't correct. The presupposition was that it's a globe. Then we made a celestial coordinate system. Then we made a map. Then we flattened that globe out. And people say, look, this flattened globe out is distorted. It's like, yeah, of course it is.
Right. Oop. Keep catching me out these clips.
Wow.
I'm convinced neither of those two gentlemen have a fucking clue what presupposition means.
I know, that's what I keep thinking. What do they think a presupposition is?
Yeah, I mean,
Witsit just wants to say everything's a presupposition.
I mean, bless Witsit, he doesn't understand why you can't measure an angle very well to something that's very near 90 degrees from at zenith. He thinks that's some sort of like refractive thing rather than just the nature of getting an angle to something using a piece of equipment you're trying to keep level.
Right.
I mean, if you were at sea, right, let's put it this way: if you were at sea and it was still, and you looked along a line plumb and you saw a star directly above you, and it happened to be the star on the almanac, yeah, right? Boom, that's it. You know exactly where you are, because the almanac would tell you what. Yeah, exactly. The idea, he thinks that there's some sort of distortion around 90 like there is around 15. That's how fucking naive he is. Yeah, he thinks...
By the way, everything he said is basically a lie. Remember, you say there's no formulas? They're in the nautical almanac. You can look at it, and there are formulas right there showing you how the refraction table is calculated.
Yeah.
Also, it seems to me the way... it seems to me that he only likes like straight observation and straight measurements, right? Like he's at a position and then he measures like the angle to the sun, and that's the angle to the sun, right? And we need to like measure everywhere, and then we will find out a map, basically excluding any effects that might, like refraction, that might play into his observation. Because if he assumes something like refraction, right, that's already bad. So it has to be exactly how it observes it in that moment, otherwise it's false. So he he can't do anything.
The corrections for refraction are like 5 arc minutes or less. They're incredibly small.
But he's telling you that that's an increasingly exponential problem for us when we look at the star.
She also thinks it's logarithmic. It's another word he doesn't understand.
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget there, at one point there, he said, and I'm quoting him, maps don't matter.
Right. It's
He
so
said that- he
ridiculous,
said that in the room.
isn't it? He just sort of
He's saying
presents them all
as
as
an adult.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
As an adult, online, saying that to other adults.
Right. Unbelievable.
He's pretending to be a truther.
Right. And, you know, I thought Jeran got him with the globe there as well, you know. Well, they're all just projections. No, but the globe itself. Oh, well, it's a coordinate system. And it's presupposed. And just utter bollocks. Anyway, here's some more.
This one is from John is asking for Jeran. Do you now believe that the weak force of gravity holds all southern oceans onto the bottom of the sphere? And if you do believe that, what type of gravity? Is it Einsteinian? Is it Newtonian?
Yeah, I think
gravity
that,
holds the atmosphere. Is it being equilibrium with the vacuum of space?
I don't know. What seems to make this the most sense, because I think that the Earth proves itself to be a sphere. So therefore, the idea that the center of the Earth has some sort of attractive force seems to make sense, because that's what we experience. So there is no water being held to the bottom of the globe. That would require the pressure to be going the other direction. The water is being held to the globe like the water in the north is, like the water everywhere is. It's all the same. There is no difference. There's nobody who's upside down. To be upside down, you have to have your head where your feet should be. But on the Earth, your feet should be at the ground towards the center of the Earth. That's where you are. That's where everybody is. So there is nobody upside down. Now you could say, well, what about the guy way up there in the north versus the guy down there in the south, Jeran? Are they upside down compared to each other? That's a different story. That would be a yes. But they're not upside down themselves. So to make questions about how do we hold water, how do we hold boats, how do we hold ships, is basically admitting that you don't have a full grasp of what they mean by gravity and how it works.
Okay, thank you, Jeran. Austin, would you like to address this one?
Sorry, I was changing it over. Yeah, can you just remind me what it was?
Yeah, it's
gravity.
Do we now believe the weak force of gravity holds all the southern oceans on the bottom of the sphere?
yeah.
And if it is gravity, what type? Einsteinian or Newtonian?
Sorry, it was so gay I forgot it. Obviously I don't believe in any of that nonsense. I don't believe in gravity's terribly debunked and impossible, and everything's intrinsically electric. And I guess this is kind of the point I was trying to make to Jeran, and more of a meta, right? Which is like you're honing in on something that you're like, okay, I can't explain this on the flat Earth, so it can't be flat. Well, it's like, okay, so what about all these other things that we know you're not going to be able to explain on the globe? Because you actually require gravity as the prerequisite to ever even claim it's a globe. And, inclusion directly to the question, no, I absolutely do not believe in that, because gravity's been debunked 1,000 times over, and simply because they need the globe, they need the heliocentric model, they need the Copernican principle, they had to come up with some crazy nonsense where, time and distances magically contract and slow down to match whatever they need for the Earth.
Do you think it could be something else, though? Like, there's a guy, I was just reading his theory the other day. I know it sounds crazy. It's called the trillion years theory. But it's the theory that there's a black hole at the middle of every sphere, that the black hole at the middle of the sun, black hole at the middle of the Earth, and that's what's attracting things to it. So it's not gravity per se. So, I mean, that's where I kind of am saying that the Earth will always be a sphere. Just like all your friends that are geocentrists, Robert Sungenis, Robert Bennett, all these PhD guys, they all believe the Earth is a sphere. Everybody, Tycho Brahe, Copernicus, you name them, they all believe the Earth was a sphere. And there's a reason for that, because the Earth is a sphere.
Well, you're just now you boldly appealed to majority.
No, it's not appealed to majority. So you're saying that we have today a flat Earth theory that has no map, no model, no explanations, you can't even tell me what the Earth looks like. You can't even say, oh, it looks like this, because what
you did,
describing.
you appealed the majority, now you're shifting the burden. I don't want to be super cutthroat and just hit you with what your fallacies you're using, but you are using lots of fallacies. But like to answer in good faith, like it's like, who cares? Actually, I talked to Dr. Bennett, and he said that he sits in the rooms and he's like, wow, I don't know how to answer these reputations of the globe. He hasn't focused on that. He didn't say like he's for sure that the Earth's a globe. It has to be a globe. Da da da. But I want to ask the question everyone here wants to know from you, right? Like, do you think the Earth is moving?
It seems to make sense that's where you would get, easier observations. Otherwise, if you're geocentrist, then you have to move everything around the Earth at crazy speeds, faster than the speed of light. It seems kind of funny.
Dude, so do you not see why people are like, what is going on right now? Like that what? You know that the evidence has shown that the Earth is not moving. We maybe will have another debate or something.
Real quick, guys, let me jump in with this next question, which is exactly what you're talking about, okay? Roger's asking, why are the measurements of the ether ignored? The MMX, the Dayton Miller, Bob, and many others, along with Aries failure, which shows the Earth is not in motion.
Okay, Jeran,
would you like to go first?
I mean, to me, it shows that the Earth is not in motion through any kind of an ether that they tried to test, at least the way they tested it. So, again, to those things, that seems to me to be such a high-level physics thing that's out of my wheelhouse. And it used to be important to me because I thought we were lied to about the shape of the Earth or where we lived. And I no longer think that's the case. Now, I think they could be wrong. Obviously, I think they're wrong about dark matter, dark energy. Even there could be gravity issues. There could be maybe we haven't gone to the moon. Maybe we can't get out of low Earth orbit. There's a lot of other things, but I'm not making those claims today. My claim is that the evidence shows us where we live. And I think that in order to believe that you live on a flat Earth, you have to then believe in a deceptive God. You have to believe that a God made the Earth answerable with one word, sphere, but it's really not. It's actually flat, and it's actually this, and well, no. Why would God make it so that it's answerable by saying flat? Why would it be so easy to say, hey, how come it's an upside down sun and moon? Oh, you're upside down and you're on a ball. Oh, why is there backwards moving? Because you're on a ball. Oh, well, why is there a south celestial pole? Oh, because you're on a ball. Oh, so all the answers of you're on a ball suffice. Yet we're supposed to believe that that's not the truth. The truth is really that God made a flat Earth, but just happened to make the mistake of making it also answerable by being on a sphere. Now, the difference is we can map the Earth, we have it mapped on a sphere, and it matches every single observation, every one. And on a flat Earth, it matches none. That's the difference. So you can keep believing in the flat Earth if you want, but it's not going to come along. You're not going to, down the road, figure out that there's some answer, because look how long it's been. There's been no answer. There's a reason why Lady Blount in 1895 was saying, well, there is a southern sun, but we can't explain it. Well, now we're 150 years past that. And there hasn't even been an attempt, because people have realized what I realized. Oh, any flat map will be the AE map, and the AE map doesn't match reality. Therefore, I hate to tell you, the Earth cannot be flat. It's time to just grow up and say, okay, let's move on to actual real conspiracies, and let's stop teaching kids lies. I did it for 10 years. It makes me sick that I thought so completely about the South being a lie that I based my entire idea of the Earth on that on that point. And when I went and found out that that's not the case, now everything else is a mess. So I see what Austin's saying, where you're like, what's going on? Now you believe that we're spinning. Now you believe. No, it's not a matter of that. It's the Earth is a ball. It shape is a sphere, and that can be realized by yourself. You can go out tonight or sunset, watch the sunset, call a friend in the South, have them watch the sunset go the other direction, and you know you're on a sphere, because there's no flat map that will ever account for that. But the sphere model is exactly that. How would the Earth be modeled
perfectly?
Thank you,
for your answer. Thank you. Austin, did you want to address this one? Why is measurements of ether ignored? MMX, Dayton Miller, Bob, and many others, along with Aries failure.
Yeah, of course. And like Jeran knows the answer to this. It's because it actually has philosophical implications that the Earth is in a special and unique position. If the Earth's in the center of everything, how did it get there? And that is the answer as a creator. It was placed there. There was some type of intelligent design. You can actually prove that with the first and second law of thermodynamics. Doesn't matter though. Like that's why it's so glaringly obvious if the Earth is in the center that it was placed there, that they run away from it. And they say this, and Jeran, again, you know that as well. Like they just straight up tell you. Wait, bro. I don't interrupt you, bro. Like they straight up tell you, right, why they do that. All geocentrists are globers. That doesn't matter. Like we're talking. Like the question is, this like now I have beef with you, intellectual beef though, right? But my point is that it's like, How all of a sudden are you going to flip on that? Oh, maybe it makes more sense. It'd have to go faster than the speed of light. No, actually, even in the theory of relativity, according to his own equations, that the actual stars can go faster than the speed of light based on the presence of the strength of the gravitational field and the immensity of masses. And in relativity itself, it can actually go faster than the speed of light. Actually, doesn't have to because we have to presuppose distances to even claim that, and we have to claim the finite speed of light in the first place. But MMX absolutely showed the Earth was not moving. So now we're in the world where we're just invoking insanity, right? Just pure insanity, that the measuring apparatus contracted, but it looks exactly the same size, time slowed down, just coincidentally the exact right amount to make us think that the Earth is stationary, but it's actually not. But we can't just, I don't agree with that, but it could still be moving. That doesn't make any sense. Like, it isn't moving. The answer, and Airy's failure proves definitively that it's not moving. And this is kind of like the issue. This is the issue. You said, but now I just thought we were lied to about the shape of the Earth. So now I don't really care about that. What do you mean? That's actually the inverse of how I feel, right? The most important part of it almost is that the Earth is stationary, because that means it's in the center and it was created.
You believe in God no matter what? You believe in God no matter what? So for me, there's a creator no matter what, whether the Earth is out amongst the galaxies or whether it's the central point. Neither of those is going to make me, it's not like if I found out that heliocentrism was real, I'd be like, oh, there's no God, we're all here accidental. No, there's a God regardless.
That's the point. You just brought up the point about lying to children, and now you're saying it doesn't really matter now because I selfishly already believe in God. So who cares about children being told that we're flying infinitely to a vacuum? You say, what's it matter? Because I already believe in God anyway. Well, what about the 6-year-old who's being told that they're on a time spec that does free falling through an infinite void?
We'll teach your kids not to buy everything at school. That's one thing we should know right off the bat. We should know that.
That isn't the point. Truth always matters. That was your whole point. And to answer the question directly and very concisely, the reason that it's ignored is because it has philosophical implications that the Earth is in the center.
We were on the same page.
Okay, well, it definitively shows that the Earth is not moving. Now, you have a stationary globe, and you know that that's really rough to deal with, and that's why you're like, well, maybe it is moving, because it just sounds ridiculous that it's just sitting there.
There's not enough people that have ever looked into it. There's not enough people that have thought about, could the Earth be at the center of everything and be spinning? Could it be? There's a lot of things that make you go, I don't know if that works. If
it's spinning, it has to revolve at the same time. They absolutely would have done that if they could have done that.
It have to revolve at the same time.
Based on the actual celestial observations, if they're spinning, it has to be revolving.
Huh? Anyone else notice there when he tried to talk about relativity and things moving faster than the speed of light, he started to speak faster than the speed of light?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got to stick his memorized. If he has to say it at that rate, or else he can't do it.
I think he knows he's lying.
Yeah, I mean, we've now the pond that is Witsit. We've pushed around with the duckweed off the surface here. We bailed out a couple of buckets of water, and now we're in the god sludge at the bottom.
Right.
This is where we are. Oh, this is where if you drill down hard enough, it's at the center. We're the sole creation. It's got his Godhead back on, and that's where he starts, and everything he's done, and everything he's read, and everything he's memorized, and every little tattly off the cuff, like someone said, bombard you with nonsense. That's all built on the presupposition. Yeah, we use that word here. That God made you. You're special when you're in the middle.
Right.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Takes you 2 hours to get there, but you always get there with him.
Yeah. Ultimately, you do, yeah.
Did he really say that, allude to the idea that there's an infinite speed of light as opposed to a finite speed of light?
Oh, I don't know what was going on there. He kind of, like you say, he was just literally just.
Yeah, he said stars can move faster than the speed of light. Stars.
Yeah, I get that, but then it was like, well, you're also Witsit's response to that was, yeah, but you're assuming that there is a finite speed of light. What would be the opposite of a finite speed of light? It'd be an infinite speed of light. What the fuck would that be?
There is I've come up with a new idea. There is a Witsit boundary, and it's a velocity of talking, which he does, and if he reaches that velocity, it becomes abundantly apparent to everyone he's talking bullshit. Right. He demonstrated there. He demonstrated because he starts saying, "Well, everything travels. The scientists now think things travel, galaxies travel faster than light." And you think, "Well, where are you getting that bollocks from?"
Right. You haven't got time to call him out on all these things as he, scatterguns them at you. You know what I mean? It's this doesn't really work properly, actually, and this other thing doesn't really work properly, and you know what I mean. And he isn't doesn't make very definitive claims. He doesn't say, well, so and so proved that that's wrong when he did this. He'll just say, well, it's not perfect
Oh.
or something. You know, it doesn't work perfectly. Or, you know.
Yeah,
just-
and he mixes things up in there as well. Like when he was talking about the contraction that happened just at just the length needed to hide the etheric speed. That wasn't a claim of relativity. That was Lorentz. Trying to create a reason why the Michelson Morley showed what it did, and still try to preserve the idea that there was an actual physical ether. So he's trying to apply he's trying to attack relativity by not actually talking about someone who thought relativity was real or existed at the time that he came up with the objection.
It still amazes me that they still lie about Ares' failure.
Right. I was thinking that. You know, it's part of the meme, isn't it, that it showed the Earth wasn't moving. So there you go. Anyway, let's have a bit more. We're getting towards the end. A couple more clips to come.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna jump in real quick. We have we have a few minutes left, just 2 minutes left actually, and a few questions that. Jeran, do you want to take any more questions at this point, or you guys want to keep going on where you're? Okay, so we got a question here from Casey asking, "Hi, Jeran. It's actually to both you, but mostly to Jeran. Hi, Jeran. I appreciate you and Austin. I admit, I'm embarrassed to admit I've listened to both of you for hundreds of hours. Thank you both. And Jeran, your change of mind was immediately following your trip. It would seem deep reflection would be necessary before concluding anything publicly. To me, your response seemed inorganic. Why didn't you ponder your view for a longer period?"
So that's multifaceted, but for one thing, I was the only one, if people remember, for 6 months prior to the trip, saying what it meant. That I was laying out the AE map that I believed in, said this is the map that I believe in. It's the map that Dave Weiss uses for his app. It's what everybody believes in, even though now they pretend like they don't. We're not talking about Austin. Austin's never championed a model. But all flat earthers, this is why they have to say that TFE was fake, is because they actually do believe in the AE map, and they actually do know that the sun circling down there would falsify it. They just don't want to come out and say it, so they'd rather just say that the trip didn't happen. This way they don't have to worry about it. But the trip did happen, and the sun did do what falsifies the AE map. So it comes down to, remind me of the question, the premise?
It's basically,
why didn't you ponder longer before
why didn't
you
you take longer before you publicly announced your decision?
Got you. So for 6 months, I was the one telling everybody this, because it was big to me. I did see it as an opportunity to either prove flat Earth or to detriment it. Meaning that if the sun did set down there, then the flat Earth is pretty much it. Now we know that it's the case because it now refutes the globe. The globe is falsified with a setting sun in the south. So that was a hope. Now, talking to Austin, we both understood that as time got closer to that trip, we were like, shit, as it gets closer, I'm starting to think it might be a 24-hour sun there. But I already knew, and this is why everybody was arguing with me, from Brother Sanchez and Z and all these guys. They were all upset at me for saying that if I go down there and see a sun circling, then I'm going to come back and say that the globe model better matches reality. And that's just how I felt, because the AE map I knew would be gone. And for 6 months, I sat there with paper trying to draw it, trying to figure it out. And I just couldn't. I was like, oh my God, the tropics are a physical thing from the sun. Same thing with the equator. So we can't move those, and so are the continents. So therefore, it's an AE map every day or nothing. So that's why it was so easy. Now, when I got back and I saw everybody saying that it was a fake trip, I realized what we were dealing with, which was a shell of the former flat Earth. The Bob Nodells, the Rob Skiba flat Earth, the research flat Earth is gone. There is nobody left like that. There's people like Stephen Alfonso, who will just say that all flat maps predict a 24-hour sun. Completely and totally false. Everybody bought it, ran with it. That's what the new flat Earth is. St. Pierre coming up with basically the, what's his name? Walter Bislin's model, where now we introduce a second sun that happens to be placed exactly where the globe model says that the one sun is, and we call that a flat map that has some sort of answer. Nope, that's just lying and cheating and stealing from the globe. So everywhere I looked, all I found was people saying, you didn't go, you're a liar. Or it doesn't matter, it's a nothing burger. So I realized, people who are flat earthers will forever be flat earthers because they refuse to acknowledge when something goes against their model. They'll just call it fake, and they won't even deal with it. So there was nobody to go to the table with me. I thought, hey, we'll come back and we'll go to Zoom and we'll get together, go back to the drawing board and figure out what the map is. There's no such thing anymore. Flat earthers are so intolerant and so convinced, they don't even do that anymore. They don't even sit down and discuss things. They already think they have all the answers. They know it. Go look at Facebook, look at comments, look at posts. They just make crazy, rude statements about people and say, oh, you stupid idiots, what, a boat's upside down? and they're just so sure of themselves, and it's a sad thing to see because I don't think that they're right anymore, and I think that a lot of it is misunderstanding, and then there's just lies everywhere. You know that video where the astronaut's on the ISS and he drops a screw and it goes ding ding ding, and he goes, "Oh, we found out that's fake. A flat earther faked that. They made that scene. You can find the original. It doesn't drop any screw."
Yeah.
So there's like all these, which are very.
Thank you for your
dark-
answer,
Sorry.
Jeran. That's we're going up on 3 minutes there. And last one is actually for Austin here. Austin, wouldn't Occam's razor tell us that if the globe matches all observations in the sky and distances on the ground, but no flat map can do either of those without distortion, that it's most likely a sphere?
Okay.
This guy should debate instead of me. Jesus.
Yeah, but it actually doesn't. Occam's razor actually doesn't do that, right? That's why I originally said the best argument you could try to make about the 24-hour sun, for example, because you just make claims that aren't true. Matches all the observations in the sky. No, they don't. I just specifically detailed multiple observations it doesn't match, and they're always hand wave dismissed. I'll look into it later, or refraction. I don't need to explain how.
I didn't hear anything specifically.
So, yeah. Specifically the star that was occulted by the mountain, and specifically that you can't even use celestial navigation 1 degree per 69 miles. But this is what I'm saying. Please don't interrupt me, bro. Like, this is what is always done. It's like these holistic claims as if they're just true. We're supposed to grant them. It matches everything, doesn't match anything on the flat earth. I told people, by the way, to the Globers, I'm like, the best argument you could make about the sun, the 24-hour sun, is Occam's razor. That which requires the least amount of assumptions is most likely to be true. So if I say, oh, well, I go down there because I'm just tipped over, right? Because I will throw this in here. Well, hey, if there was actually a satanic force, if Satan's actually real, I know you might take beef with that. If he wanted to deceive the world, well, maybe he would have greater knowledge of the way that the world works, and he'd be able to absolutely hijack the fact that in the South things change. So that doesn't sound like you appeal to like a philosophical grounds there. But I'm just gonna say Occam's razor, okay. The problem with that actually though, it sounds good because the other argument is just affirming the consequent. That's no good. But Occam's razor sounds good until you realize, oh, actually, it doesn't require the least amount of assumptions, right? Because it requires me believe that the sun is 93 million miles away, that the stars are an infinite distance away. Thus, there's nothing in between us so that we can see that, and that perspective doesn't affect the sky like it affects everything else with special pleading. Then I claim that actually my physical orientation is why I saw the sun that way. So it requires way more assumptions before you can talk about observing the sun in the first place. So Occam's razor doesn't even apply the 24-hour sun with the globe. So my answer is, if your hypothetical was true, if no observations ever matched, and yeah, sure, with specifically celestial observations, Occam's razor would benefit the globe, but that isn't actually the case. That isn't how it works at all. So you're incorrect. In fact, the celestial navigation observations, the angles to the star observations, the Seattle celestial theodolite observations with the mountain obscuring it, etc., actually perfectly match the flat Earth. We can predict where it's going to be based on the flat Earth using plane geometry, and it doesn't match the globe. So the base premise that you baked in there actually isn't correct. And I do just want to make this one more meta point right here. Is like, based on the story that Jeran just said, and wait, can we do closings? Because I don't like to.
We didn't discuss it, but do you guys want to do closing?
Sure, closings or something.
3 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, we'll just do that because I don't want to go too long. I want to kind of address some of the stuff that Jeran said though, right? Because he kind of went on a bit about the whole thing, and I want to kind of address it. But so to wrap that up, like, no, actually, Occam's razor doesn't apply because you made a claim that isn't true about how it always matches the globe, doesn't match flat Earth. That isn't actually the case, and I've given multiple examples. So you're actually isolating a singular observation that requires multiple assumptions prior to you were even going to claim Occam's razor, which means it requires many assumptions. So Occam's razor doesn't apply. That's the direct answer.
Okay, thank you.
Oh my God. How many assumptions have we heard Witsit make about all sorts of things?
No one assumes the stars are infinitely far away. Where's he getting that bullshit from?
Because somebody has said it one time when they meant indefinite, and now it is the word of choice for flat earthers.
But again, he repeated the assertion that if things were far away, they wouldn't behave they do if perspective was happening, which is the complete opposite of what we understand about perspective. If something is a long, long way away, as you move around, it doesn't appear to change its position with respect to you.
Right.
That's how it works. If it's nearer, it moves a lot more.
Right.
I mean,
he's mixing models, isn't he, when he says that?
It's just not true. I mean, everything we see behaves like perspective. No one in the world thinks that's what he's saying is the case.
Right. All right, shall we have some closing statements then? This is the last clip, I believe. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm a bit lost tonight, but yes, closing statements. Enjoy.
I think people can go back and look at the debate. I mean, if there were known anomalies with observations that the globe predicts, and what I'm just talking about is simple, sunrise, sunset, angles, and times. Those are predicted by the sphere, and they are match everywhere on the Earth. There's nowhere you could go and say, oh, now I look at Google Earth and it's off by 3 hours. When Austin's talking about the stars or something being off, he's talking about tiny little bits, like a degree, something. So it's the Earth is still a sphere. If you're off a degree every once in a while, that's not going to make it flat. And to picture for yourself, an Earth that is flat is going to have much different geometry than an Earth that is a sphere. Meaning that you can't tell. Here's my new belief. I no longer think you can lie to people about the shape of the Earth unless they want to be lied to. Okay, what I mean by that is people can make observations. So if somebody comes and tells you live on a dodecahedron, you can go out and make observations and figure out that you don't, because what the dodecahedron would call for isn't matching our real world. So if the Earth is not a sphere, then we would be able to show where observations of a location somewhere in the world doesn't match what the sphere says it will, and we don't see that. So even if Austin says that we do, he can't name one. Just name one. Just tell me, like, oh, well, in Jakarta, India, whatever, they're supposed to be at 27 degrees latitude, but actually the angle to the star is 38, something like that. That would be, then you'd say, oh, there's a problem with the globe. But the globe is perfect. The globe has complete symmetry. 90 degrees south, 90 degrees north. Each place you move up, 80, 70, 60, is identical 6 months later from the other place. We have 12-hour days and 12-hour nights on the equinox for everybody. And then moving north or south, the daylight hours change perfectly, meaning that in the summer for the north, you would have 0 daylight hours at the South Pole, and you would start moving your little marker up, and it would go up perfectly until you get to 24 hours of daylight at the North Pole. That's impossible on any other shape. The fact that you have the sun going different directions. For a flat Earth, that's a paradox. For a globe Earth, it's a feature of living on the globe. For me, again, I just want to end it with this. I'm not concerned yet with the spin, everything else yet, because I'm trying to get people to understand that we live on a sphere, that you can go figure that out yourself. You don't need help. You don't need mathematics. You don't need your professor or NASA or anybody. You can do it yourself. I was going to show you tonight. I didn't get around to doing that, but I even put a GoPro on a globe, spun it, like they say, looked at the observations of the light and what it does, and then matched that, and it matches exactly what we see. So therefore, we live on a sphere. It would be impossible that we didn't. And the only way that we can let them get away with supposedly lying about it is that if we let them. Meaning that, like, we all as flat earthers just believe they were lying to us, even though we can make observations that tell us that they're not. We can make observation. Now, I'm not saying all observation. I'm not saying that Austin's wrong about a lot of what he's saying. About the shape of the Earth is the globe will be globe forever. I hate to tell you, and believe me, it's unfortunate for me. I don't want it that way. I lost my channel. My channel's going to be gone. I'm going to be off of YouTube because I told truthers the truth. That's the problem.
All right. Thank you, Jeran, for those closing statements. Austin, 3 minutes. I'll begin when you start talking. You're on mute.
Thank you. One of the things that you keep on saying goes against something that you've said for many, many years, and is that people knew that the Earth was flat for thousands of years without a model. And now all of a sudden, we absolutely have to have one. We have to have one because of a singular isolated observation, right? That the globe explanation for actually isn't even sufficient. It has insane, preposterous presuppositions before we even get to observing the sun. You just look at the final outcome, right? You don't even hold those previous presuppositions at any type of a scrutiny. And I'm just pointing out that you used to repeatedly and adamantly point out, dude, what? We don't have to have a perfect model. For thousands of years, people knew the Earth was flat without a model. Now we need one specifically for one observation. Everything else gets thrown out the window. But so if Jeran had a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary, then a 24-hour sun over his head in the south would not falsify either planar or stationary. It only does that if he's affirming the consequent and or did not have a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary. Therefore, why would anyone accept his new belief that it's a globe is a justified one, considering his previous belief could not have been justified? So basically, it's just the ontological premise in which you're reaching these conclusions are flawed intrinsically in both situations. And so what I will say in closing, this is what everyone's so perplexed about, is you keep, what it sounds like to me is, in the answer to the question of why you didn't take your time or whatever. And cause I was there, bro. And I had your back, and I didn't turn on you, and I still haven't, and I'm not going to, but I was there. Right. And I talked to you after the plane. I know it was a genuine, sincere experience and moment that you had on the plane. And I was there, bro. I was there. And I got turned on just like you did. You may think you got it worse. I don't know. I think in a way, maybe I got it worse. But this is the thing, right? It's like the reason that people are so perplexed and so confused is because seemingly what happened was you came back and, like you said, we're going to go to the whiteboard. Let's get on Zoom meetings. Let's figure it out. Some of us did do that. You said that's not what happened. That's not what flat earthers did. Well, no, actually, some of us did do that. You have, again, you don't like it, but Joe Hanvey has shown many different possibilities. I've seen a few different possibilities, and simply the sun's in an apparent position. But you didn't actually do that. What you did was you come back, you realize, yes, there were some people that absolutely that they pissed me off too. I've taken a break. Because these people just acted crazy, right? And they started attacking us. And then, like you said, they clearly did reify and internalize the AE model. And then they're like, wow, this would disprove it. So they started calling us liars. They started attacking us. They did everything that we stood against or claimed to stand against when it came to the globe, right? Just presupposing a belief and internalizing it. And whatever doesn't go along with it, we're going to turn against it. But what you've now done is kind of stereotype and holistically generalize all of us, throw us in a basket. This is why people are getting triggered with you, right? Because when you say things, you say flat earthers as if we all do that. We didn't all do anything. Right. And so, yes, in a way, in the grand scheme of things, this is going to be way beneficial for flat earth because, yeah, the cultish, like dishonest people popped their head out. And so we realized, whoa, dude, we were so focused on this phenomenon on the other side or with other people or with the mainstream, we didn't realize that they were right around us as well. And so that absolutely did happen, and I stand right beside you against those people that just all turned on us. But in conclusion, I will say this is the issue. You are basically just saying it can only be this way, and you're not actually examining all the presuppositions baked in. You're not actually logically assessing it because it requires presuppositions to even make the final affirming of the consequent. That is a major point that I want you to think about because you are not you're all of a sudden able to hyper focus and isolate that singular observation and then put all of the other evidence aside, all the refutation, say, well, whatever the globe answer is, it must be true because I know it has to be a globe now. And that is not the proper way to look at it at all. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you, Austin, about the people. It's just, I think I look at it and I see that there isn't the group of people that there was before. I know you're saying that there was and you were on Discord. But really what it comes down to is that when, let's say somebody in the future goes down now, they're not even going to want to go because of what happened to us. So what we've done is we've created a cult that will not accept that their information might be wrong. They can't accept there's an observation that goes against us. It was fake. We were some of the top flat earthers that there are. You and I don't know what number you want to put out, top 10, something like that. But they didn't give a shit. They threw us under the bus so fast. Why? Because they don't care about fixing their position. They already are right. So
we agree with that. Maybe we can do a show and talk about that. We agree with that.
Sure. Because I think that's a problem. I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying.
I'm going to respond to your second closing with repeat the one thing. I want you to think about this. I'm just going to repeat this thing. It's written down. If Jeran had a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary, and then a 24-hour sun over his head in the south would not falsify either planar or stationary, it only does that if he is affirming the consequent and or did not have a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary. Therefore, why would anyone accept his new belief that if it's a globe, that's a justified one, considering his previous belief could not have been justified? And I want you to just think about it. I mean, I'll copy and paste it to you and just think about it, right? Because it's like that's the issue. It's the actual route in which you're reading the conclusion.
Does it make sense that I would say that I thought that the South was a lie because of the map that I adhered to? Then I went looking for another map when I said, if this map's falsified, what are we going to have? And then I said, there is no other map. So there is only one flat Earth map, and it has been falsified. So you're right. You could be saying something true, meaning that Jeran, you don't know that there's another map that's going to come out in the future. You're right. I don't know that. There could be one, even though I've already kind of worked it out that there couldn't be one. But
brother,
right.
That's not even what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you're putting way too much weight on projections and models in the first place, reifying them, internalizing them, and then implementing a false dilemma, a false binary. That's what you're doing. But look, we're going to go back and forth forever.
Yes, they were going to go back and forth forever. I noticed Witsit's feeble attempt at philosophy there. He missed out a very important word, which is true.
True.
Right? Justified true belief. Not justified belief. And the
Let's see,
and the true part is the
Jared
important part, because the true part is where you confirm that your belief comports with reality, and that's what Jeran hadn't been able to do as regards the 24-hour sun, and then was able to do. So anyway, go ahead.
His argument is that because Jared was wrong, Jared will always be wrong. Therefore,
right.
I don't know.
That is pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, once you're wrong, and say now that you've found out, hey, I was wrong, but are you wrong because I don't know? It just seems that it's a double standard. That you can't go back from the globe. It's a cult.
I do like that he appealed to Dave Weiss, who uses an AE map, and he appealed to Joe Hanvey, who uses an AE map,
right?
And he appealed to Shane St. Pierre, who uses an AE map. But I don't know why he's stuck in this idea that, you just got your one map proved wrong. I talked to other people who say that we don't need that. All of them fucking use it, and all of them have had to come up with bizarre second, third suns. Dave Weiss went out and said that you guys were flown somewhere that was actually dark, and essentially a giant drum cannon light source was used to project a sun into the sky around you.
Right, ridiculous bullshit that they came up with. And Weiss is still saying it. He said it the other day on my last show. I think I had a clip of him saying it was fake as fuck. But he still, he still doesn't. He hasn't got a problem with Witsit at all. But he's saying that thing was fake as fuck, even though Witsit's saying it wasn't fake as fuck. It's just, cognitive dissonance or what, He also said about Joe Hanvey, he said Joe Hanvey's shown many possibilities. No, he hasn't. He's attempted many times to show one possibility and failed many times. He hasn't shown many possibilities.
He didn't fail many times. He failed every time.
Oh, I did miss Flamingo Boots super chat. Just let me say this. Thank you very much for that super chat, Flamingo. He didn't actually say anything, but thank you anyway. Very, very much appreciated, Flamingo, as always. Sorry, go ahead, guys.
We are now at 22 failed attempts to explain one thing from Joe Hanvey.
Right. Yeah. He was pathetic, really, wasn't he?
I have heard some of them say that the final experiment had something satanic going on.
Right. Yeah.
They were possessed, or the sun, the light in the sky was a satanic projection. But that's also done.
Yeah, Dean Odell said that. He actually said that in front of his congregation, that the sun was Satan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It makes you want to go up to him and ask him. It's like, hey, given everything that you think that God has told you personally, how do you know and could you show that Satan didn't tell you that instead and that you were deceived?
Right.
He would not have an actual way of answering that.
We've been going for over 3 hours, so I think we should wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too boring doing one debate for the whole show. But I thought it was quite interesting to go into it in this much detail for once,
No, I thought it was good. I held off watching it until today, just so I could enjoy the.
Right. Oh, good. I'm glad you did, because I know a few other people had got hold of it and done, analysis of it and what have you. I thought I was going to be the only one, but of course,
No, the trouble with these fucking Americans is they tend to do everything in the middle of the night. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Anyway,
so what I'm getting out of this, Jim, is that you're going to be a part of Witsit's incredible list of people that he's suing for using transformative work.
Oh, I don't know. Is he doing that? I can always take it down if he does.
He's supposedly going to sue MC2 and Ruhiv.
Oh, is he? Oh, right. Well, he can add me to his list then. Yeah, I'm sure he can claim copyright or whatever. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, everyone. We will be back as normal in 2 weeks' time for a normal show doing the normal thing. And then the week after that, I'm going to see ELO. Yay! So, anyway, thank you all very much for the super chats. Thank you to everyone who PayPal'd me, which is no one, but it'd be lovely if you did still. And see you all in 2 weeks. Have a good evening.
Stop talking about it and do something! Suck my dick, Earth, with that bullshit. Really?
It's like a gentle hate. Do we have another service? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Are you benevolent? His friends are.
I mean, moving on. I think I'm coming out of the finance closet. This is so fucking depressing. I can't be a flat Earth person.
Can't have it both ways. You can't have a flat Earth and things making sense.
And we're off. Thank you very much,
I have a favor to
everyone.
ask. I've asked this before, but